This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate third and final part of What If Naruto traveled back in time and saved Minato. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
It took 2 days for Minato to send a squad made up of Anko, Shizune, Genma, and Aoba to pick up the prisoners after the message took 1 day to reach Konoha. Isaribi made the decision to accompany Naruto's group as they departed for Cha no Kuni. Tsunade concurred that having someone with Isaribi's skills on board would be helpful due to the terrain of the place they're going to. So Tsunade. Chan, did you pay back all the debt you owe in Cha no Kuni yet? Debt? Asks Isaribi. Tsunade remarks, if you're a smart brat, you'd be quiet the rest of the trip, as she gives Naruto a fist shake. With a back hug, Yugito says, Naruto.kun, stop upsetting Tsunade. Chan. How could they show such disrespect toward Tsunade Sama and get away with it? Ibiki inquires. Tsunade Sama doesn't really mind, Gaara responds, at least for now. If Naruto still calls her that in a few years, I don't know how she'll react. Curious, Isaribi asks, why is that? Naruto is dating Tsunade Sama's daughter. If they get married, Naruto can't exactly call her Chan anymore, says Gaara. Naruto.san is dating Tsunade Sama's daughter. But what about Yugito, Chan? Naruto is under the Clan Restoration Act, Ibiki asserts, even though Hokage Sama is still alive and he has a daughter, the fact remains that he is the only male who can continue the Namikaze and Uzumaki lines. The group nods their heads and returns their focus to Tsunade, Yugito, and Naruto. While Yugito ignores Naruto's flirtatious attempts, they spend the next 15 minutes watching Tsunade make baseless threats against him for making fun of her poor gambling fortunes. The ship eventually reaches its destination before things can get really out of control. As he gets off the ship, Naruto asks, so how should we go about this? It would be nice to have some sort of contact in this town instead of just searching around blind like we did in Umi no Kuni, Yugito states. It was by sheer luck that Naruto.kun met Isaribi, Chan. Contact Tsunade responds. I guess we could go and see if Wasabi Jirushu Oyabun has any information. Plus I'm sure he'd be willing to let us stay with him during this mission. Yugito asks, who's Wasabi Jirushu Oyabun? He's an old friend of mine, says Tsunade, who helped me out quite a bit with my money problem. Well, if he's going to let us stay, I don't see why we should turn down free lodging, Naruto responds. Lead the way Tsunade. Chan. Naruto looks back at the Slug Princess with a Cheshire grin as he ducks under Tsunade's punch. Tsunade complains as she turns around and leaves for town, the others trailing behind. The group was escorted to the meeting room as soon as they arrived at the expansive compound, where they have been waiting for the last half hour. As Wasabi Jirushu and an attendant carry a fresh pot of tea to replace the one that was left in the room when the group first arrived, the door opens just as the three genin, Isaribi, and the fox are about to fall asleep. Sorry about the wait, there was a small problem that required my attention. Tsunade asks, the Wagarashi stirring up trouble again? I would assume so, but I haven't been able to pin it on them yet, Jirushu responds. So what brought you all the way out here, Tsunade? Last I heard, you gave up your gambling ways and went back to Konoha. I'm afraid that we're here on business, Jirushu Oyabun, Tsunade responds. We're here to investigate the presence of a Nuke.nin from Konoha. A Nuke.nin you say? Jirushu responds. What makes you think that there is someone like that here in Cha no Kuni? We obtained the information from an enemy ninja that we captured. And how strong is this Nuke.nin that you speak of, Tsunade? He was a Junin before he left Konoha. A Junin Is there a particular reason that you are asking these questions, Wasabi.san? Ibiki inquires. Well, a Junin Nuke.nin would certainly explain some of the things that has been going on around here, Jirushu responds. If it's at all possible, Tsunade, I would like to commission you and the young ninjas to look into the matter. I think there is a very good chance that our goals are aligned. As she turns back to face the others, Tsunade asks, a side mission? The only response she got from the three genins was a shrug. Isaribi chose to avoid the conversation because she had little influence over it, and Ibiki stayed his emotionless self as usual. Tsunade shrugs her shoulders, returns her focus to Jirushu, and agrees to the mission. Wonderful, I'll have my assistant show you to your rooms and bring you all the pertinent information, Jirushu responds. Excuse me, but I have to write a response to Daimyo Sama's inquest as to what has been happening lately. You wouldn't believe how angry he was in the last ladder. As the assistant leads the group to the guest rooms, Ibiki's frown never leaves his face. but he could see the same frown on Gaara's and Yugito's faces. Ibiki looks at Naruto and is shocked to see that, although he appears to be totally oblivious to his teammates' feelings, he is actually gesturing subtly for the fox to approach Yugito so that he can console the girl. That old man was lying to us, Yugito states following the departure of the assistant. He was so worried when you told him we are here because of a noob.nin Tsunade.ba. Chan, but he relaxes when you said it's a Junin we are looking for. I bet he hired a weak ninja to cause all those trouble himself to make this other person look bad. I've known him for a long time. Jirushu. Oyabun isn't that type of person, Tsunade states, though I have to agree that his behavior was odd. He did look glad that we were looking for a Junin. You knew him the longest Tsunade.ba. Chan. If he isn't involved, then I guess it doesn't really matter to our mission, Yugito responds. Let's just go through these documents and see if there's anything in there. That's my Yugito. Chan always loves to piece together a puzzle, Naruto responds. Ibiki reads through some of the documents and remarks, Wasabi.san is right about one thing. Some of these things are not something that a regular street thug can do. They require the skills of a shinobi, and a good one at that. According to Tsunade, so we can pretty much rule out genin. Unless they are under very strict orders and observations from the Chunin or Junin in charge, Yugito asserts, Aoi Rokusho did have 3 genin under his command. But Ibiki.san is right, based on their performance in the Chunin exam, there is no way they are capable of doing these things on their own. There are some legend of black rain on the outskirt of town, says Gaara, flammable black rain. Is that even possible? If they are from a Megakure no Sato, then yes, Tsunade continues, there are people in that village that can control rain, and Sweden. Koku no Jutsu fits that description. It's not water coming down with that technique, but actual flammable oil. That would explain the large-scale fire that I'm seeing in some of these reports, says Naruto. Some villagers are saying that it's a sign of God denouncing the Wasabi family's right as leader of this area. Spread by Wagarashi family's goons, no doubt, Tsunade continues. I doubt those people actually own the houses that were burned down. It does appear odd that there are several instances where both houses on either side were destroyed but the one in the middle was completely untouched, says Gaara. Why would Orochimaru have Aoi Rokusho do all these things here in Cha no Kuni? Ibiki responds that he has nothing obvious to gain from these actions. It is possible that he has a backroom deal with the Wagarashi family. According to Tsunade, he already had a base in Umi no Kuni. It's possible that he wants to establish another one here in Cha no Kuni. Digarashi port looks like a pretty busy port town as well. It could be much more similar to the case in Umi no Kuni than we think. Yugito adds, it could be another way to secure more money. Right now we are pretty certain that the 3 genin from a Megakure no Sato is involved, says Naruto. But do we have anything concrete linking all these incidents with Aoi or Orochimaru? Yugito raises a specific scroll and remarks, there might be, adding that, most of the earlier incidents involved clear cases of arson, but lately, the fire were started by lightning strikes after the black rain. Lightning strike? Ibiki responds, well, that would certainly put more stock into the divine judgment theory. You're not thinking that the lightning strikes were coming from the Raijin no Ken, are you? Tsunade inquires. I came from Kaminari no Kuni. I know how lightning works. There is no way random lightning strikes could hit something so precisely to cause the kind of results Gaara, Yugito asserts. Once or twice is bad luck, but there is no way it could be random after happening so many times. What about death tolls and injuries? Do we have anything on that? Naruto inquires. There hasn't been any reports of death yet. Most of the injuries were light to moderate. The ratio of injured to unscathed is about half and half, according to Gaara. Half the time the people inside were injured by the fire. The other half managed to get out of the place just as the fire started. Let me guess, almost like they knew the fire was coming, Naruto responds. Precisely, Gaara replies. Yugito mutters, and those are the ones yapping about divine judgment too, I bet. Gaara smirks and says, I think it's safe to arrive at that conclusion. So we can pretty much conclude that Aoi Rokusho and his 3 genin are involved, Tsunade states, but we haven't had a hint of proof that Orochimaru is involved outside of Amachi pointing us in this direction. Well, we might have the proof after we captured and interrogated Aoi Rokusho, Naruto responds. Let's just put together what we have right now, Tsunade responds. Our primary objective remains the capture of Aoi Rokusho. Our secondary objective is to deal with the 3 genin working with Aoi Rokusho and end the attacks in this town. Any questions? Naruto asks, dead or alive for the 3 genin? Whichever one is more convenient, Tsunade continues. If they are willing to surrender peacefully, we'll capture them alive. But if they are looking to fight, then we will take whatever measure necessary to ensure the success of our mission. Gaara remark, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. Following the meeting, the children are left alone in the room while Tsunade and Ibiki collect the paperwork and go to Jirushu's office for a more thorough examination of who owns the demolished properties. Isaribi. Chan, you were pretty quiet during the entire conversation, what's wrong? Yugito inquires. Well, it's not really my place to say anything, Isaribi responds. I'm just a foreign civilian after all. Nonsense, you're part of the team now, of course you can make your opinions known, Naruto responds. Naruto.kun is right, Isaribi. Chan, Yugito responds, but there is something I need to ask you though. Go ahead. I know this might sound insensitive, but we really do need to know this, Yugito responds. Would you be opposed to using the Kaima form to help us fight in this mission? Kaima form. Why would you need such a monstrosity? Isaribi inquires. Well, we are in a port town, so there is a chance that the fight will end up spilling out to the ocean. Yugito continues, while we could fight on water, our opponent are adapted at fighting in that kind of terrain, and Gaara isn't exactly the best candidate to fight in those conditions. But if you're really uncomfortable with it, we can perfectly understand. If you can use water techniques even when you are not in Kaima form, that's good enough for us really, Naruto states, you don't really have to use your Kaima form. Yeah, that would be good too, Yugito responds, we just need someone who can fight in the water instead of just on it. That I can do. I was always a pretty good swimmer and I did learn a few water techniques that I can use out of Kaima form, Isaribi continues, no matter how much I hate it, what happened to me did give me the ability to stay submerged for a long time with no problem, even without transforming into that monster. That would be perfect, thanks for all your help Isaribi. Chan, Yugito responds. I haven't actually done anything yet, Isaribi blurts out. Nonsense, you've helped us a great deal already, Naruto responds. Naruto's sentiment is echoed by Yugito and Gaara. Even Ginkgo supports Isaribi by nuzzling her muzzle against her arm, which makes the girl smile and blush deeply. After a few minutes, Yugito remarks, it's too bad we can't go outside, it's too boring here. We can't do anything about it. While we dealt with the Genins in the Forest of Death, the fact of the matter is that we had all the advantages back then and they have all the advantages now. Not to mention we have never had an actual confrontation against a Junin without backup. Gaara continues, there is no doubt that if the Wagarashi family is aligned with Rokusho Aoi, they already know that we are here and are looking for ways to eliminate us. If we go outside on our own, we risk being attacked by both the AIM squad and the Wagarashi family. Maybe we can just walk around the compound, just to stretch our legs a little, Naruto suggests. Are you sure that's a good idea? Yugito responds, I mean, we're just guests here and there might be places in this compound that Jirushu Oyabun doesn't want us going to. I don't think there would be any problems, but let's ask someone, just as a sign of courtesy, says Naruto, it's better than being cooped up in here all day. That seems reasonable, Gaara responds, if they refuse then we will simply have to think of something else to occupy our time. The 4 children and 1 fox start their leisurely walk around the compound after requesting and being granted permission to do so. Suddenly, a person pulls up a few meters ahead of them and runs straight past them. The question is, who are you and what are you doing in this compound? We are shinobi of Konohagakure no Sato, says Naruto, we are hired by Wasabi Jirushu Oyabun to investigate the strange happenings that has been occurring in this town. Oyabun hired a bunch of genin to investigate the incidents? The young man responds, there is no way he would entrust such an important matter to someone like you. Well, we are here with 2 veteran Junin, they are merely discussing the specifics of the incidents with Jirushu Oyabun right now. I thought shinobi operates in 4-man cells, why are there 6 of you here? Well, this is a bit of a special case, Naruto responds, Soa, are you going to tell us your name? I don't want to know yours and you have no need to know mine, says the young man, Oyabun placed his faith in you. If you fail, I will make sure every nation in the world knows about your pathetic failure. The young man turns around and flees once more, leaving behind an enraged Gaara, a shocked Isaribi, and a furious Yugito. Naruto thought, man Idate is back to his old shinobi hating ways, but at least he doesn't know Ibiki is here yet, or else he's going to lose it. There you kids are. Where did you go all this time? Naruto says, we were just walking around Tsunade. Chan, without even turning to face the Senju. Yugito, who is still furious, responds, yeah, and ran into an incredibly rude person. Well, just ignore that person. We need to head back, Tsunade responds. Ibiki is waiting back in our rooms so we can start planning out the specifics of the mission. Idate never again appeared in front of anyone in the Konoha contingent for the next 3 days, which suggests that either Jirushu made arrangements for Idate to avoid the Konoha.nin or Idate discovered that Ibiki was staying in the compound. Similarly, since the arrival of the Konoha.nin, there have been no incidents. The group came to the conclusion that Wagarashi Kyuraku must have been alerted to their presence by the Wagarashi's observers at the port. "We aren't just going to sit here and do nothing, are we?" Yugito inquires. "We do have to head back to Konoha eventually for the Chunin tournament. We are going to have to alter our plans, make them come to us instead of us waiting for them to strike and using a counter strategy," says Gaara. Tsunade asks, "Do you kids have any ideas how to go about that?" "I do have an idea," Yugito admits, "but it's risky." "Well, let's hear it," Tsunade responds. "Let Ibiki and I handle the risk management. When we faced the 3 AIM genin, they were a bunch of smug little punks. I doubt they took their embarrassment well and they must be out looking for revenge," Yugito responds. Gaara, Naruto.kun, and I will set out in a small boat to one of the surrounding islands, under the guise of searching the uninhabited islands for hidden base of operation. The place where the AIM genin has the most advantage would be in the middle of the ocean. Aoi would probably be hiding on the nearby island to finish the job his genin started. Tsunade.ba. Chan can head out in front of us and set an ambush on that island, while Isaribi. Chan will be our backup by staying close to us in the water as we sail out. Ibiki.san will stay in this town and patrol the street to put up the image that only the 3 of us are heading out and you 3 are staying in the town to maintain the peace. That's a risky plan, but not a bad plan, Tsunade says. Well, you 2 are the veterans, Tsunade.ba. Chan, Ibiki.san. Yugito responds. Do you have any suggestions on making the plan any better? No, that's a pretty solid plan. Isaribi has no problem swimming around in the ocean for a long time. Her only problem might be exhaustion, so maybe just have her swim out a short distance, enough that the people on shore can spot your boat and have her come aboard then to conserve her energy, Tsunade responds. There are 2 risks we are taking with this plan though. 1. They might decide to take Ibiki on instead of trailing the 3 of you out in open water and he'd be the only one guarding the town. 2. I have no idea exactly where you are coming ashore or where Aoi might set his ambush even if everything goes according to plan. There are so many islands that just a few moments difference in the time of the genin's attack will send you to a completely different island. If I set my ambush on the wrong island, you kids might end up facing Aoi on your own. Well, we should be able to hold him off long enough for you to find a Tsunade.ba. Chan, Naruto responds, and I don't think Aoi would be dumb enough to take on both you and Ibiki.san here in town. Just in case I can create a cage bunshin and have it henge into you and patrol the town alongside Ibiki. That will have to do I suppose, Ibiki responds, under the time constraint, that might be our best hope. Yugito asks, so, that's the plan we are going with then? We don't exactly have much of a choice, we can't just sit around and wait for them to strike, Tsunade states. Like you said, we do have to get back before the Chunin tournament. I think they know it as well, that's why they're trying to test our patience. Then all we have to do now is cast the right bait to draw out the big fish, says Naruto. Once all the small details were worked out, the team started to carry out the plan. However, Jirushu sent his attendant to inform the Konoha.nin that the daimyo of Cha no Kuni would be stopping by the port to assess the situation, as there had been no incidents since the Konoha shinobi had arrived in the town, before Tsunade could sneak away. As a result, they had to change the plan so that Ibiki and the Naruto clone could watch over and defend the daimyo rather than patrolling the town. Are you sure that's a good idea, Tsunade.ba? Chan? Naruto inquires. What if the Wagarashi family decide to take out the daimyo instead? That would be the dumbest thing they can do, Tsunade responds. They want to wrestle control of this port from Wasabi Jirushu and they are the only ones powerful enough to do anything of significance in this town. If they decide to make an attempt on the daimyo, while he is being guarded by shinobi hired by Jirushu Oyabun, then all they're doing is exposing themselves as the ones who caused all the incidents and turned the entire town if not country against them. But what if Orochimaru orders Aoi to take out the daimyo to cause instability? Yugito inquires. Sure, most of the blame will go to the Wagarashi family, but Jirushu Oyabun and Konoha would also be blamed for inadequate protection on the daimyo. In the ideal world we would be requesting reinforcement with this new information, but any backup would be too late if anything actually occurs. Tsunade continues, like I said before, the plan we have now is the best plan we can come up with under the circumstances, and that's the plan we have to go with. Tsunade.ba. Chan, you should stay here and help Ibiki protect the daimyo, says Naruto. If Aoi does come after us, we'll figure out some way to deal with him. That's out of the question, Tsunade responds, "That's adding too much risk to this mission." "No, Naruto-kun is right," Yugito responds. "Even if everything goes according to plan, we don't know which island Aoi is going to be hiding out in. There's no guarantee that you'll be able to reach us to be of assistance anyway. It's better if we redistribute our resources to account for multiple scenarios. Even if Orochimaru doesn't order Aoi to attack the daimyo, there's no guarantee that he wouldn't send someone else to do the job. After all, Aoi is supposed to be meeting with someone from Orochimaru's camp here in this country." "Buddha, Yugito is correct," Gaara asserts. "Even you and Ibiki-san agreed that the three of us are at least Chunin level. We should be able to deal with Aoi and his squad. Not to mention with Isaribi-san's assistance, we have the element of surprise once again. Yeah, they didn't even get to see what Naruto-kun and I are capable of. Gaara was the only one that did anything against those three genin in the Forest of Death," Yugito replies. "Naruto-kun and my abilities are still a large unknown to them. There's also something else. Not that many people knows this, but the three of us can also use summoning techniques," Naruto continues. "If push comes to shove, we'll bring out the big guns and summon help. Minato's going to kill me for this, but all right, we'll go with this updated plan," Tsunade responds. The following morning, Naruto, Yugito, Gaara, and Ginkgo in her fox form set out in a small boat with Jirushu, while Tsunade and Ibiki accompany her to receive the daimyo. Isaribi has already relocated to a deserted coastline protected by Naruto's Bunshin beneath a henge, and she plans to meet them when the group is sufficiently distant from the port. If all goes as planned, the group is terrified of the danger they are about to encounter. Even Naruto, who only defeated Aoi the last time due to the Raijin no Ken being damaged by Sasuke's Chidori. After the group assists Isaribi in boarding, Naruto asks, "So how do you all want to go about this?" "I looked at the map of the surrounding area last night," Yugito relates. "All the islands are practically filled with lakes and rivers, but the second island south of Digarashi port seems to have the least amount of water on the island itself. So if we want to make our stand, that is the best location for us," says Gaara. "Shouldn't we assume that our opponents are going to know that as well?" Isaribi inquires. Isaribi-chan is right. If they are aware of the topology of the islands, they would most likely keep us from going there, Yugito asserts. "Even if you stays floating in the air on one of those sand platforms, Gaara, all it takes is one decent water attack to knock you out of the air. Even without my sand, I can still contribute to this mission," Gaara explains. "This isn't how I usually fight, but Kurenai Sensei and the two of you already helped me prepare for this kind of situation in Konoha." "I don't doubt it, Gaara," Naruto declares. "Isaribi-chan, if the mask we saw in the Forest of Death is any indication, the three genin are capable of fighting underwater. Therefore, avoid interacting with them in the water if we come across them while we are still in the boat. However, once the battle begins, move into the closest body of water if we find ourselves up against them on the island. Our element of surprise will be you." "Understood, Naruto-san. What about the Raijin no Ken, though? Once the electricity starts flowing, the water could be a very dangerous place," Gaara inquires. "The rivers and lakes are formed by runoffs from the hills," Yugito explains, adding that since it is a freshwater source, the conductivity is zero. Even after accounting for the Raijin no Ken, it ought to be secure. "I asked one of the attendants. A thunderstorm just came through the islands 2 days before we arrived, according to Naruto. The additional rainwater lowered the conductivity even more. Then it should be safe enough for me to stay in," Isaribi states. "I'm just glad that I could be of some help instead of being a burden." "You're never a burden to us, Isaribi-chan," says Yugito. "You're our friend. We might not have known each other for a long time, but Yugito-chan is right. You're our friend, Isaribi-chan," says Naruto, "and friends will never be a burden to each other." "I agree with their sentiment," admits Gaara, "but we should put the small talk on hold for now. The dark cloud hanging over us seems a little menacing, and I believe a boat is coming our way." "It looks like it's raining black water," Isaribi remarks. "Oil," Yugito declares. "It's them," Naruto remarked. "The only question is if Aoi is with them." Isaribi-chan, stay on the boat, Yugito says. "Your water techniques are our best bet. If a fire starts, let Gaara's sand put it out. There's no point in showcasing our full potential just yet." "The air isn't all that humid," says Gaara. "I'm going to get a closer look." Isaribi was about to inquire as to how Gaara was able to perform this feat when he placed his left hand over his left eye. A tiny cluster of sand formed a tiny eye above him, and Gaara directed his chakra to send the eye toward the other ship in order to scout out the opposition. "Don't look so shocked, Isaribi-chan," Yugito advises, and don't worry, the air around the hot springs are too humid for him to use that technique. Gaara growls, there's only one person on that ship, so stop trying to divert my attention. I'm trying to concentrate, Yugito. He is not accompanied by his teammates. The sea. They're pursuing us from below, Yugito yells. The cloud of rain is directly overhead, Isaribi yells. Before the group can react, black rain cascades down from the dark cloud, soaking the ship with oil. Leaping out of the ocean, the two aim Genin flings kunai after kunai at everyone on the boat. Gaara's sand barely manages to block all the weapons but not the explosion from all the exploding tags attached. The sparks from the exploding tags lights up the oil collecting on spots of the Konoha Genin's boat, starting up small fire all over the vessel. Sending out his sand, Gaara manages to put out the fire, but all the sand is then rendered useless by the water technique from the remaining aim Genin sailing up next to the Konoha boat with his own. Using the remaining sand, Gaara forms a sand platform to lift Isaribi and himself off the ship, while Naruto and Yugito uses water walking to engage the three aim.nin on the surface of the ocean. Instead of fighting the aim.nin in their environment, however, Naruto and Yugito simply serves to hold off any pursuit from the aim.nin with the use of Cage Bunshin to fight off the aim.nin on the surface and various lightning techniques to keep them from attacking from below. After the group eventually lands on dry land, Naruto remarks, well, everything seems to have gone according to plan so far, adding, we got to the island we wanted to head for. Yugito says, this beach should be dry enough that we can regain the upper hand from the three punks. Gaara, could you use this beach's sand to restock your supplies? It's a bit too fine for my liking, but I can make it work in a couple of minutes, Gaara asserts. The cliff face behind us seems rather rich in various minerals. Good, I think we can hold them off for that long, Yugito responds. Your sand is our buffer against the Raijin no Ken, so take as much as you need. They're coming, declares Naruto. Are they more Oboro Bunshin or the real thing? Yugito queries. They're the real deal, Naruto declares. Isaribi-chan, stay close to Gaara. What do you think, Naruto-kun? Asks Yugito, taijutsu. No, we still need to look for Aoi and report back, let's just make it quick, Naruto responds, but still take up enough time for Gaara to do what he needs to do. Got it, just play with them a little then, Yugito says. Aoi should be a long way from us because this is the last place they want us to be at out of all the different locations on all the islands. Gaara, please let me know when you're ready. The three aim Genin threw everything they had against Yugito and Naruto for the next 2 minutes without even coming close to hitting them. Even when they decided to send Mizu Bunshin to bring more help, Naruto's Cage Bunshin quickly destroyed all the water clones, leaving the three aim Genin completely frustrated. A few seconds after the 2-minute threshold passed, tendrils of sand rose up from the beach and wrapped themselves around the three aim Genin's neck, ankles, and wrists. Dead or alive? As if inquiring about the weather, Gaara asks from his position in the back. Well, what the hell, Naruto exclaims, we can give them a little more time to live. Yugito responds, provided that they know something that we can use, so do you or don't you? Gaara controls the sand, bringing the third aim.nin closer to the group and releasing the sand around his neck so he can speak, while the other two tremble in terror and the third is desperately trying to communicate to the Konoha contingent that he has something to say. I overheard Aoi Sensei and Wagarashi Kyuraku talking to someone working for Orochimaru yesterday. According to the aim.nin, that person promised that if Wagarashi can take care of the daimyo, Orochimaru will let Wagarashi run this port when Orochimaru takes over Cha no Kuni. Is Aoi pursuing the daimyo? Inquires Naruto. I don't know the specifics, the aim.nin responds. Aoi Sensei only told us to attack the four of you. Are you aware of the appearance of this Orochimaru employee? Yugito queries. I don't know his name, the aim.nin responds. I'm pretty sure I saw him during the first stage of the Chunin exam. Are there any unique characteristics? Gaara queries. Silver hair, wears glasses, asserts the aim.nin, I didn't get that good a look. Yakushi Kabuto, murmurs Naruto, is a teammate of Masumi Tsurugi and Akadu Yoroi. Alright, it appears that we won't be able to get much more from them. If you can tie them up, Gaara, Yugito says, we'll let the Konoha experts handle it. We should get moving, says Naruto, we need to get to the nearest fresh water source. There should be one a bit further inland just over these cliffs, Yugito continues, a river that should fit our purpose quite well. Gaara, knock them out and take them with us, Naruto responds, and we should probably play the role of the sloppy genin and leave a trail for Aoi to follow. That might just get him to underestimate us, Yugito continues. Good idea, Naruto.kun. By the time Aoi Rokusho tracked down the Konoha.nin from his place up in the trees, he spots Naruto, Yugito, and Gaara setting up very poor and visible traps around the area. His 3 genin are knocked out cold and bound to the trees by Gaara's sand. Smirking at the supposed naivete of the 3 Konoha genin, Aoi moves around the edge of the clearing, looking for the best place to strike. Retrieving 5 kunai, Aoi fires them into the clearing, triggering all the traps and catching the 3 Konoha genin in their midst. However, instead of being grievously wounded by the traps, the 3 Konoha genin simply disappears in smoke. Recognizing Konoha's famous solid clone techniques, Aoi flees from his spot, muttering under his breath all the while. Suddenly, a large wall of sand crashes down at Aoi from his right, forcing him to dodge to the left. Manipulating the sand, Gaara forces Aoi to dodge continuously, and pushes him to the river running down toward the beach. Finally regaining his bearings, Aoi uses the Kawarimi no Jutsu to get away. Those little brats, Aoi grumbles, to think that they know a kinjutsu like Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Jutsu no Raiju Hashiri. Sensing movement behind him, Aoi grabs the Raijin no Ken and uses the lightning sword to barely block Yugito's lightning attack. Then, he spins around and swings the Raijin no Ken at Naruto, who is sneaking up behind him, only to have the sword go right through and cause Naruto to scatter in smoke. By the time Aoi turns around again, Yugito has also vanished, and he curses under his breath as he attempts to find his targets again, but finds it much hard. They believe they can play hide and seek with me, don't they? Aoi says, let's see how good they really are. Who claims that we are hiding from the trees, Naruto says. We're just trying to get you to exactly where we want you, says Yugito. Suna Shigur, Renden. Sensing movement behind him, Aoi swings the Raijin no Ken around again, slicing through Isaribi's Suidan. Suigun Suima no Jutsu, but the sword just goes through the water and he is hit by the water and lightning from his blade rocks his body, temporarily paralyzing him. Aoi easily avoids the sand bullet, but he never saw the sand fall into the river behind him. I know you're wondering why the river's fresh water would be charged in this way. The sand bullets you avoided were more salt than sand, Yugito remarks, tying Aoi up. In a flowing river, that wouldn't really matter, says Naruto, but when it is trapped in a small enough body of water, the result can be even more conductive than seawater. You're not very good at observing your surroundings, are you, for a Junin? As Naruto seals away the Raijin no Ken, Gaara adds sand to guarantee Aoi's imprisonment, saying, for us to surprise you from behind so many times in one fight. Although you were able to repel every attack from behind, your reliance on that sword ultimately led to your demise. Naruto says, we should probably report back, knocking Aoi unconscious like his 3 genin. With any luck, we might be able to get back before the daimyo shows up in town. When the group returned to Digarashi port, they discovered Wasabi Jirushu's men patrolling the streets. Assuming that the patrols were only to ensure security for the daimyo's arrival, the group returned to Jirushu's compound and possibly helped with the security effort. They found the daimyo sitting in front of a room, Jirushu standing beside him, and the young man they had met earlier pacing back and forth and occasionally looking at the doors. Naruto.san, Yugito.san, Gaara.san, Isaribi.san, you have returned, Jirushu announces. Naruto responds, yeah, we were able to apprehend Aoi Rokusho and his 3 genin. What's going on? Where are Ibiki.san and Tsunade, Sama? Jirushu claims, Wagarashi Kyuraku attacked daimyo Sama's convoy while it was traveling to this town. An enemy shinobi was involved in the attack, and Tsunade.san engaged the shinobi. The Wagarashi gang brought archers with them, and Ibiki.san jumped in front of multiple arrows aimed at daimyo Sama to protect him. We didn't realize the arrows were poisoned until we got back to Digarashi. Tsunade.san is currently inside tending to Ibiki-san's wounds. Yugito inquires, so the patrol's outside They're searching for any and all persons connected with the Wagarashi family. Jirushu states, if we find out that they are connected to Wagarashi Kyuraku or have knowledge on the attempted assassination, they will be charged with treason. I managed to stabilize his conditions and remove most of the poison in his system, Tsunade says as she enters the building. He's going to need a bit of time to recover, but you can go ahead and see him now. The majority of the returning group is left in complete bewilderment as the young man rushes into the room to check on Ibiki without even apologizing to the daimyo. Naruto also puts on a confused front in order to conceal his knowledge of Idate. The genin asks, that's Ibiki's little brother, Idate, and Tsunade responds. You mean the person who stole the Raijin no Ken after being duped by Aoi? Yugito queries. Yeah, that's the one, Tsunade responds. Speaking of which, if we may be excused Daimyo Sama, I would like to listen to the Genin's report on their mission. To which the Daimyo replies, of course Senju-san, please go right ahead. How did it go, then? After they have moved into an empty room away from the contingent assembled outside the temporary medical ward, Tsunade inquires. We managed to capture Aoi and his aim Genin as well as recover the Raijin no Ken undamaged. Yugito continues. Normally we would leave it to Ibiki to interrogate them, but right now I've already sent words back to Konoha, Tsunade states. Standard procedure, since we have a medical.nin on hand in friendly territory, would be for me to stabilize the patient's condition while we wait for Konoha to dispatch a relief team, so that's what we're going to do. What comes next? Gaara queries. The relief team should arrive rather quickly, Tsunade says. Like I said, Ibiki is going to need some time to recover, but he's not in immediate danger anymore. I used Gyaku Kachiyose no Jutsu to send word back to Konoha so they would receive the message as soon as possible. I estimate that they will arrive here in a maximum of 3 days. Therefore, our only task is to secure the inmate and ensure that they are unable to flee. Naruto responds. Jirushu. Oyabun stated that a shinobi was involved in the attack. Did you catch a clear view of him? Tsunade claims, it was a young woman. She has some kind of a weird crystal keke genke. From her Hitayate. Certainly someone from Otogakure. Yugito, you did a great job assessing the situation. The daimyo most likely would have died by now if the plan hadn't changed at the last minute. Thanks, Tsunade. Chan, Yugito blurts out. Suddenly, Jirushu says, Tsunade, if you have a moment, through the door. Why is Jirushu Oyabun acting strangely? Tsunade inquires. Will your group remain in Digarashi for a while longer? We are waiting for the relief team, so until they arrive, we're going to be staying in town. Would it be feasible for Cha no Kuni to ask your team for help once more, if it's not too much trouble? Depends on what it is, Tsunade continues, we are kind of shorthanded right now. It should not be too difficult, it just requires quite a bit of manpower, Jirushu states. While I do have a vast following, it's not enough to comb through the town. And the daimyo is quite adamant that we capture Wagarashi Kyuraku and make an example out of him. Tsunade looks at the children and says, well, if it's manpower you need I don't think that Oto Kunoichi is still in town, so if you four are up to Ida. Naruto explains, I can use my Cage Bunshin to help out in the search, which will put us in the least dangerous situation. She will only be able to kill a clone, even if the assassin is still in the area. Tsunade says, we'll go with that, saying, I'll have Naruto spread out and help in the search. Thank you Tsunade. Jirushu responds, Daimyo Sama has promised that he'll be more than happy to pay for this additional mission if it's successful. Finding a cowering Wagarashi Kyuraku in one of the old storehouses on the outskirts of town took Naruto only half a day, given the amount of Cage Bunshin Naruto can create. The public trial and execution took place the following morning, and 2 days later Konoha's relief squad arrived. According to Tsunade, Kurenai, Anko, Shizune, Guy, did Minato truly believe that the situation was dangerous enough to justify sending 4 Junin to pick us up? My apologies Tsunade. Sama, Kurenai responds, but Hokage. Sama has assigned another mission for this squad and he hopes that you'll continue to lead the squad. Ibiki still needs treatment, it's not like I can just take him along, Tsunade states. I'm sent here to make sure he continues to receive treatment on his way back to Konoha, Shizune explains. Adding, Ibiki.san will be traveling back with us. Guy.san is here for protection, and Anko is here to ensure that the inmates don't escape. Kurenai, how about you? Tsunade inquires. I'm here as replacement for Ibiki.san as the second Junin on this mission as well as second.in. Command, according to Kurenai, this new mission is going to take us right into Ta no Kuni, where Otogakure is located. Just the 5 of us together? Tsunade inquires. We will be traveling to one of the smaller bases near the border of Hai no Kuni, according to Kurenai. Our mission is to take out that base so that it cannot pose a threat to Konoha or Hai no Kuni in general. Before pointing to Isaribi, Tsunade says, oh alright, adding, this little girl is our guest and has been a big help to us during this mission, so treat her well. While Ibiki was out of commission during the assassination attempt, Morino Idate helped us out here as well by fending off all of Wagarashi's thugs. He will be returning. Anko, you are free to enjoy yourself with the other 4. 4 gifts. Anko exclaims, you're too nice, Tsunade. Sama. Tsunade waves Anko away and responds, yeah, look, we're all heading back to the mainland, so we're going to go on this boat ride with you. When we return to the mainland, we'll divide up in the direction of Ta no Kuni. According to Guy, very well Tsunade. Sama, alright, we don't have all day, let's get out of here, Tsunade responds. After the ship returns to the mainland, the two groups split up, with the 5 ninjas on the most recent mission going to Ta no Kuni and the others escorting the prisoners back to Konoha. Naruto's group travels at full speed and reaches the target village by nightfall. Since they are unable to tell friends from foes, they choose to camp outside the village rather than reveal their presence to the locals. Can't believe I'm saying this, Tsunade responds, but I kind of hope that the old pervert is here instead of watching over the Uchiha brat. What is Tsunade.Ba-chan doing? Yugito queries. There is a reason he is in charge of managing Konoha's spy network, Tsunade continues. If there are any information to be had in that village, that old pervert can probably get it by sunrise tomorrow. Naruto states, bars and brothels are the places where people have the loosest lips. Do you think your summons can help us Yugito-chan get information? I can probably send some out and have them hang around the younger girls at the brothels, but I wouldn't know how to get them into bars, Yugito states. To catch mice I suppose, Naruto responds. I doubt the people we are looking for are going to be visiting high-end bars. That's a good point, Naruto.kun, Yugito replies. Great, let's get started. Jutsu no Kachiyose. As the village's eyes and ears, Yugito sends out her summons, which consists of 5 kittens and 5 hunters. The 10 cats move to the various entrances of the village and wait until the middle of the night before sneaking in without being noticed. Every day, Yugito sends another summons to the village to collect information from the spies, and for the first 3 days, all the spies found were local gossip that had nothing to do with the mission. It wasn't until the morning of the 4th day that the summons returned to Hunter during the period when the bar to which it was assigned was closed. Tell them exactly what you heard, says the leading summon. An individual entered the bar last night. He began griping to the bartender about some individuals named Hanzaki, Sasama, and Arashi after having a few drinks. What makes them so important? Yugito queries. Apparently this Sasama person has been sneaking out at night to look for this Arashi person. Why is that important? Just a couple of teenagers sneaking out at night to meet each other, Tsunade inquires. The drunk complained that this Arashi person is beyond saving ever since he joined Orochimaru, according to the hunter. Apparently this Hanzaki person has some influence since the drunk and the bartender both suggested that he should do something to stop this Sasama person. Yugito remarks, now we are moving forward. Do you know if Sasama ever got in touch with Arashi? I don't know, but this Sasama hasn't been seen since 2 nights ago, the hunter responds. I did manage to get into her home and got a piece of her clothing. Good job, Naruto responds. Give it to Ginkgo and let her try to find traces of this Sasama's scent in this forest. The leading summon pulls out a scroll, unseals a small piece of cloth, and steps aside, letting Ginkgo pass and smell the garment clearly. Ginkgo sniffs what looks like a woolen cap, picks up her snout, and sniffs the air. Ginkgo picks up a weak trail, looks at Naruto, and then turns her head north, away from the village. Looks like Ginkgo-chan found something, Naruto announces. Lead the way Ginkgo-chan. The group finally pauses at a small clearing after following Ginkgo through the dense foliage, and Ginkgo points to the exact location where the trail went cold while pawing the ground. Okay. So either the person just suddenly disappeared or there is something hidden here that we're not seeing, Yugito responds. I highly doubt that someone from that village would have enough shinobi know how to perform solid bunshin or use shunshin no jutsu, Tsunade states, at least not having someone from Orochimaru's side teach them. I can feel a slight trembling in the ground, says Gaara. There's something down there and whatever it is, it's coming toward us fast. Naruto commands, scatter, as everyone disperses into the trees. A young girl with orange hair emerges frantically as the trapdoor that hides the entrance to the hidden base suddenly collapses, and 3 more figures with auto hitayate attached to their forehead rush out after the figure, realizing that the person was probably the same person they are attempting to find and rushing out to help. Konoha.nin? In Ta no Kuni? The first auto.nin says, holding a weapon that resembles a pincer on his right arm. What ought we to do? A man with a scar on his right eye, who is also auto.nin, asks. The top auto.nin, a man with buck teeth and a hunchback, claims, we are well within our rights to eliminate them because they are infiltrating into foreign territories. Kurenai and Ginkgo retreat to defend the masked infiltrator, while Naruto, Yugito, and Gaara confront the 3 auto.nin, with Tsunade serving as backup. The 3 auto.nins brows furrow as they realize that the Konoha contingent is able to move into their respective positions without exchanging even a single word, and even though they may not be aware of the identities of the others, Anyone with even a passing familiarity with shinobi history can identify one of the Sannin in Konoha's group. The fact that someone of that level of fame is willing to step back and merely provide backup to the three children in front of them speaks volumes about the strength of the three children. Which do you two prefer? Naruto inquires. When Yugito says, I get scissors guy. When Gaara says, I'll take big and ugly, guess I'll take one eye then. You brats, don't undervalue us, before rushing towards Naruto, the one-eyed Otto.Nin screams. We can't take on them one-on-one, so stop being foolish, Otto.Nin, the hunchback, yells. However, all the warnings are for naught as the other Otto.Nin charges out after Yugito along with his partner. Growling in frustration, the hunchback Otto.Nin prepares himself against Gaara. While the two opponents stare each other down, Tsunade slips out of everyone's view while Naruto and Yugito makes short work of their opponents. Sensing movement behind him, the leader of the three Otto.Nin breaks off his stare down with Gaara and barely jumps out of the way of Tsunade's punch. Grabbing his downed teammates, the Otto.Nin jumps away from the Konoha.Nin. Forming hand seals, the Otto.Nin slams his hands on the ground before any of the Konoha.Nin can chase after them, creating a giant antlion pit to form on the forest ground, pulling the three Otto.Nin down to the center and keeping the Konoha.Nin from pursuing the group. Frustrated that their opponents got away, the group turned back toward the hidden entrance only to find that the Otto.Nin's technique caused the hidden passageway to collapse on itself, sealing the entrance permanently. What else could go wrong today, then, with no Otto.Nin and no means of entering the base without exploding a huge hole in the ground and alerting everyone inside? Yugito grumbles. There is the fact that they now know we are in their territory, says Gaara. Yugito mutters, not helping Gaara, while scowling at Gaara. Naruto looks at the first infiltrator into the Otto base and remarks, well, on the plus side, I think we have someone here who can help us out a great deal. What do you want from me, exactly? Are you Sasama, by any chance? Naruto inquires. How do you know who I am? My sources told me that you were out of the village looking for someone named Arashi who happens to be working for Orochimaru, Naruto responds. With Arashi? What do you want? I will not allow you to harm him. According to Tsunade, I don't think you fully appreciate the situation you are currently in, since we have been ordered to destroy Orochimaru's base here. We can either treat you as an adversary and coerce the information from you, or you can voluntarily assist us. I'm not going to tell you anything. We will see how long you can hold out, Tsunade responds. While I don't do this all that often, being a medic.nin also makes me an excellent interrogator. While Tsunade and Kurenai are concentrating on Sasama, Gaara asks, Naruto, Yugito, can you help me a little bit here? Do you think you have any techniques that can drill a small hole in the ground? With my Daisan no Mi, I would like to look inside. All my techniques have too wide an impact radius to be of use here, says Naruto. Mine too, Yugito responds. Lightning attacks aren't all that good for subtlety, especially on anything related to Earth element. I guess I have to drill my way through, says Gaara, it'll take me at least 10 minutes to get through. Would trying to move through the cave be simpler than moving through the bedrock? Yugito says. I don't know how thick that earth wall is, says Gaara, but I got a glimpse how thick the bedrock is when the trapdoor opened. Not to mention we don't know how stable that earth wall is, says Naruto. The top level might keep sliding down to fill up whatever hole we manage to drill through. When Yugito says, I guess that's true, too bad my wind chakra control isn't good enough to sharpen my kunai, or else it would be really easy to cut a hole through, says Naruto. That gives me an idea, Yugito responds, let me borrow Raijin no Ken for a minute Naruto.kun. Taking the weapon from Naruto's hand, Yugito channels her lightning chakra into the blade, making it hum with power before turning it down and plunging it into the ground. Its cutting power enhanced by the lightning element over Earth. Yugito looks down into the hole it left behind and frowns when she can't see any light coming through. Naruto looks at Yugito bewildered, then shrugs his shoulders and unseals the weapon. Looks like the sword isn't long enough to cut all the way through the ground, says Yugito. That's more than good enough, Gaara responds, it'll only take me about 30 seconds to go through whatever is left. In order to drill through the bottom and widen the hole, Gaara directs the sand into the hole and then uses his spying technique to get a better view inside the hidden base. He does this by concentrating and forcing the sand to slowly begin spinning. Gaara interrupts the Sannin's verbal threats with the words, Tsunade. Sama. The hallway leading to this destroyed exit seems abandoned. Given that they are already aware of our presence, this would be a suitable entry point if we wanted to storm the base. Are there any traps in sight? As Kurenai puts the girl under a sleep genjutsu, Tsunade asks, diverting her focus from Sasama. Negative, but I could probe further if you wish, Gaara responds. No, I'm satisfied with that. Tsunade says, we don't have enough time to play around, so if we can get in, we'll take it. Please move out of the way so I can tear down this earth wall. This isn't how I envision an infiltration mission to be, Yugito responds. Kurenai explains that this is more of a seek-and destroy operation than an infiltration mission. In this type of mission, brute force is often just as effective as stealth once we have located our target, especially if the target is already aware of your presence. In other words, get them before they either escape or set up traps while you are waiting, says Naruto. Kurenai smiles and says, more or less, before pointing to Sasama. Naruto, make some clones and bring her along. We don't require her to provide Orochimaru's men with reinforcement. As the Konoha team enters the base, Gaara uses his third eye technique to send the sand construct ahead to scout out the paths, and Tsunade uses one chakra-enhanced punch to bring down the earth wall that seals the hidden entrance to Orochimaru's base. This place is like a maze, says Gaara, there are a lot of split paths ahead. I'll send some Cage Bunshin ahead, Naruto responds. I'll have them dispel when they find anything of interest. Between Yugito's summons, Gaara's Daisan no Mi, and Naruto's Cage Bunshin, not to mention Ginkgo's sense of smell, this team is actually a pretty decent scouting and infiltration team, Tsunade states. Yeah, you can marvel about it after we're done with this mission Tsunade. Chan, Naruto replies. The walls of the hidden base tremble a little, and Yugito turns to face Gaara, who just shrugs his shoulders, before the whole group turns to face Naruto. The Cage Bunshin didn't dispel, so Naruto just stares blankly at the others until the sound of fast footsteps catches everyone's attention. One of the Cage Bunshin returns with a young woman with black hair on his back, and he only slows down when he gets to the group. Who is she and what the devil is happening? Naruto asks Bunshin, the Cage. The Cage Bunshin claims, she is one of the guards of this base who has some crazy notion of committing suicide just to kill the intruder, and he attempted to capture me using a bizarre technique that resembled arrow Sennin's Ranjashigami no Jutsu before bringing down the entire ceiling on us both. We were fortunate to have encountered arrow Sennin's technique numerous times, however, she still received a fairly severe blow to the head from the falling ceiling. Tsunade examines the wound and remarks, looks like she's going to be out of it for a while. She will likely suffer a serious concussion in addition to the gash. After we're through here, I'll decide what to do with her, so put her with the other girl. Naruto relays information from his dispelled clones, saying, my clones are just seeing plenty of empty rooms. It appears that there aren't many people in this base who could pose a threat to Konoha. Tsunade says, as a medic, I don't really like to kill, so it's best we nip this at the bud before they actually manage to convince the rest of the shinobi in that village to join up with Orochimaru. Therefore, it would be ideal if we could minimize the number of casualties. Naruto's words, wait a minute, one of my clones found a large room, almost like a weird throne room with all the columns, prompt Gaara to ask Gaara to look at the room. Gathering around the former Shukaku Jinchuriki, the group gives Gaara the instructions, and Yugito draws the room on the floor in accordance with Gaara's description while he holds a piece of rock from the side wall that was destroyed when Tsunade punched through the earth wall obstructing the entrance. It looks like the central chamber to the entire base, Gaara says. I saw quite a few tunnels in and out of the room but I don't see any clear path to escape. Which means that if the rest of them are as crazy as that black hair woman, that's where they will want to face us, Naruto states. Even if they lose, they can bring down the whole base and we won't have any obvious escape route. Before actually storming the center of the stronghold, shinobi always have a backup plan, Tsunade explains. For a normal civilian that would be true, she says. Can you pinpoint the precise location of that central chamber in relation to the forest, Naruto? Yes. I think I have a good idea. Good, we're going back up top, but leave your clones around, Tsunade responds. Let them think we are storming the base from this entrance. While they are distracted, we'll drop right on top of them into that central chamber from the forest floor, Yugito continues. Exactly, Tsunade responds, that would render any and all traps they set in the tunnels absolutely useless. If anything, the traps will keep them from escaping. According to Kurenai, it will make it all the easier for us with them contained in one area. Alright, let's go. They have already spent 2 hours in the same area, with Gaara using his sand to create specific fractures in the bedrock so the team can control exactly how the ground is going to collapse, while Naruto is providing a running commentary of his Clonisa actions, occasionally creating more when the Clonisa ranks are beginning to thin out. Although the people inside the base are likely distracted by Naruto's clones, Kurenai and Yugito collaborated to weave a multiple-layered genjutsu to conceal the group's presence so that Gaara can work uninterrupted. Gaara, how much longer? Yugito queries. Almost there. I only have one more corner to get through, says Gaara. When Gaara's done, I want all of you to clear out of the area, Tsunade responds. I don't want you kids getting caught in the collapse. WH. What's happening? You all took me where? Finally emerging from her genjutsu induced slumber, Sasama utters these words. Tsunade explains. The kid woke up quicker than I thought, adding, if you're truly curious, we are directly above the center of Orochimaru's secret base. You can't run back to the village to get help, at least not without us picking you up long before you arrive. What's the point of being here? The Fuma clan is capable of handling its own internal issues, according to Sasama. Tsunade claims, Konoha is just making sure that the rest of you don't go joining Orochimaru, adding that even if you want to join him, the dirty snake won't be interested in your clan after we destroy this base. At least he won't want to turn you all into anything more than ordinary feed. We would have joined Orochimaru long ago if we had any interest in doing so, Sasama says. Then why don't you tell me what you are doing in that base if you're not interested in working for Orochimaru, Tsunade responds. I was just looking for my cousin Arashi, Sasama responds. I want to convince him to turn away from Orochimaru. What caused the quick cooperation? You weren't nearly as willing to talk before, Kurenai says. You claimed that Orochimaru would abandon the clan if the base was destroyed, correct? All I want is for my cousin to return home, Sasama says. I believe that you intended to murder every person in the base, but if cooperating with you is necessary to save my cousin, then so be it. It's done, declares Gaara. Tsunade responds, all right, you kids get back. When everyone has left the clearing, Tsunade uses her chakra, enhanced strength to punch the ground, breaking it around before leaping off the crumbling ground and into the trees. With the help of the bedrock's cracks, the devastation spread to the ring of trees surrounding the clearing. When everything has subsided, the group looks down at the enormous hole in the ground in wonder. Yugito remarks, wow, that's a deep drop. Do we go down there now? Better question is how we are going to get down there, says Naruto. I'll transport us there. Gaara constructs a sizable sand platform and says, Sabaku Fuyu. This is rather convenient, Tsunade responds. I thought for a moment that I need to bring out Katsuyu. After safely reaching the floor of the hidden base's central chamber via the sand platform, the group discovers a few cage buncheons standing there, awaiting additional orders from the original. It's all right guys, go ahead and dispel so the others know they can dispel too, Naruto responds. The group leaps back and turns toward the tunnel where a small girl with green hair calmly exits, clouds of smoke billowing out through the many tunnels leading into the central chamber, and then kunai and shuriken fly out from one of the few that has no smokescreen. Kajiro. Sama. Are you familiar with Sasama? Chan? Naruto utters those words. Kajiro. Sama is one of the best shinobi in the entire Fuma clan, Sasama asserts. It doesn't make sense for them to send out the top shinobi to face a full group of healthy ninja, Tsunade states. Her job is most likely to wear us down for whoever is actually in charge of this place. For some reason, Shay feels familiar to me, says Gaara. I don't quite understand it, but it almost feels like she is the hunchbacked, bucktooth Otto.nin we met before. How were you even able to tell? Kurenai says. I don't know, it's a byproduct of our year-long training before we join the academy I suppose, Gaara responds. I haven't really paid much attention to it, but Naruto and Yugito has the same abilities too, and we pretty much took it for granted. Are your children now censors as well? Before muttering, Tsunade remarks, as if your children weren't already gifted enough. According to Naruto, no, not censors, but rather an innate ability to recognize malevolent intentions. And this girl's hatred for Gaara is practically leaking out right now. Where is Arashi.ni? Chan, Kajiro. Sama. Kajiro, keeping her gaze fixed on Gaara, says, silly brat, Arashi is no longer the same kid you once knew, but if you're really set on finding him, just follow the tunnel behind me. If you can get past me, that is. Gaara says, you guys go ahead, I'll take care of her. Naruto says, no, too dangerous, and then gives Sasama a weary look. Alongside him, two Suna Buncheon emerge from the ground. I will be fine, she won't even be able to get close to me, Gaara says. Be careful, none of you are leaving, Kajiro yells. As Gaara spreads his sand to cover everyone, Kajiro turns around and throws one of the torches from the tunnel's entrance. She jumps up after it and begins to form hand seals. Kajiro uses Kaden. Kasumi Enbu no Jutsu, aiming down toward the group, and releases a lot of flammable gas that, when it comes into contact with the burning torch, turns into a raging fireball directed at the sand shield. Although the sand shield is at least 3 feet in front of the group, they can still feel the heat from the raging inferno on the other side, and by the time the flame goes out, the outermost layer of sand has already turned to glass. That would have been really dangerous if not for your sand, Gaara, Yugito responds. We can't outrun that technique, says Naruto, we have to take her down before we can go any further. She looks too frail to use a technique of that power too often, says Gaara. Tsunade responds, no, that technique doesn't take all that much chakra, because the majority of the power came from the torch's fire. It resembles Shizune's Dokukiri almost exactly. The problem with that kind of technique is that it doesn't have a lot of range, says Naruto. We should attack from different angles so she can't focus that technique on any one of us. After reaching a consensus on the strategy, Gaara lowers the sand shield while Yugito, Kurenai, Tsunade, and Naruto leap out to the side and Gaara distracts Kajiro with his Suna Shigur. Once everyone is in position, all 5 Konoha shinobi advance, but Kajiro disappears into the ground. A Doden technique of some sort, Kurenai says. Should have known that she has some earth affinities with that antlion pit technique she used at the entrance of the base, Tsunade asserts. The group can still make out the technique name, Kajiro Ninpo Udakata, despite the fact that her voice is muffled by being in the ground. Ginkgo growls loudly and charges Gaara, knocking him aside as Kajiro emerges through the ground directly beneath Gaara. Flying through the 4 chakra wings on her back, Kajiro turns around and unleashes a powerful chakra blast directly at Gaara and Ginkgo, pulling the fox behind him and moving all the sand in front of him and the fox. The light from the technique's impact blinds everyone for a few seconds, but when they open their eyes again, they see a large sand tanuki standing in front of Gaara, barely scratched after taking the full brunt of Kagero's attack. Psycho Zatai Bugyo. Shukaku no Tate, Gaara says, panting and attempting to stop his heart from pounding. How are you still alive? Exactly, Kajiro grips her chest and murmurs. As her wings dissipate, Kajiro dives down from the air and rams her body into Gaara, causing the two of them to row farther away from the group. Rolling away from Gaara, Kajiro concentrates what little of her chakra she has left and creates a thread that connects her to Gaara. Sasama's eyes widen, and she reaches into her weapon's pouch and takes out a kunai and a small seal tag, which she wraps around the weapon and throws it at the thread, cutting the connection. Kajiro looks at Sasama, barely having the strength to mouth the word, traitor, before she passes out. What was that? Yugito says. According to Sasama, that chakra thread is a murder. Suicide technique of the Fuma clan, meaning that once the two are linked, any harm done to one will also affect the other. Only a weapon encased in a unique Fuma clan seal tag is capable of cutting the thread. Gaara checks Kagero's pulse and declares, she is still alive, well, somewhat alive. Most likely won't last long without significant medical assistance. Tsunade says, get out of the way, brat. I'll get her condition under control. She may later be able to provide us with some information about Orochimaru. Kajiro. Sama said that Arashi.ni Chan is down that tunnel, Sasama responds. Don't go running off on your own, Naruto cautions, you're still under our watch. However, what if we are all standing around here and Arashi.ni Chan leaves the base? Naruto looks toward the tunnel and declares, he's not leaving the base, and we don't need to find him either. What is the intended meaning of that? Sasama yells. Yugito points to the tunnel with a trembling finger and says, because I think he found us, that Issa if that monstrosity is the Arashi you kept talking about. Sasama can only scream when he sees the semi-humanoid creature emerge from the tunnel, looking in the direction that Yugito is pointing. The creature is standing straight, but there is a big hump on his back where 2 humanoid torsos protrude, and the faces on those torsos look like the 2 other Fuma clan shinobi who chased Sasama out of the hidden bases just hours ago. Naya-chan? Arashi? Jubaku Mandara, murmurs Arashi. Before he can even respond, Gaara is already trapped by a chakra cage from Arashi's technique. Standing upright and staring at Arashi in boredom, Gaara crosses his arms as he watches Arashi moving his hands closer and closer together and the cage shrinks with Arashi's movements. Noticing the correlation between Arashi's hands and the size of the cage, Naruto and Yugito charges in, hoping to free Gaara, but is chased back by the 2 torsos on Arashi's back. Dropping back to avoid the strikes, the pair can barely register Ginkgo standing guard over the downed dark hair Otto.nin and the stunned Sasama to their left and Tsunade treating Kajiro off to their right with Kurenai standing guard over the Sanin. Risking a glance back toward Gaara, They notice sand flowing out and pushing against the walls of the chakra cage from the inside while Gaara is still standing in the middle with a bored look on his face, his eyes not leaving Arashi. Suddenly, Gaara's glance strays toward Naruto and Yugito, and with just a brief moment of eye contact, the two youngsters nods their head toward their teammate and jumps away from Gaara. Naruto toward Ginkgo and Sasama, and Yugito toward Tsunade and Kurenai. The moment their feet touches the floor, a large wall of sand surrounds the two groups as a large explosion sounds from Gaara's location, his sand strong enough to break through the cage and the backlash from the release of the energy causing destruction throughout the entire cavern. As he pulls back the sand that forms the protective wall around the two groups of shinobi on the sidelines, Gaara remarks, "This farce has gone on for long enough. I haven't used this technique for a long time, not at this scale since I left the desert," he says. In the cavern, a thin layer of sand forms beneath everyone but Gaara and Arashi, and as soon as there is enough sand to support their weight, the sand gathers into a platform and lifts them all into the air. As Gaara kneels down and places his hands on the ground, everyone realizes for the first time that the outermost layer of the ground has already turned to sand, and while the sand around Arashi shifts and pools around his feet, trapping his ankles, the rest of the group moves around Gaara, creating a massive wall of sand that nearly reaches the cavern's ceiling. Ryuza Bakuryu. The group waits until the sand finally settles before taking a chance look down, shielding their eyes from the miniature sandstorm that results from the sand kicking up after smashing into the back wall. From what little they can see from around the edge of the sand pool, the group can easily see that the ground is pushed down by at least 2 inches just from the impact of the amount of sand crashing down. With a twist of the arm from Gaara, the sand shifts away from the middle, and Arashi floats up to the surface, his head lolling off to the side, his arms and 2 torsos still trapped by the sand. It is evident from the movements of his chest that Arashi is still breathing, but he is no longer a threat to any of the Konoha group. Arashi.ni. Chana. Saw. Sasama. Raising his head to gaze at the girl, Arashi murmurs. Sasama yells, Arashi.ni. Chan, are you a? Before jumping off the sand platform and sprinting in the direction of her cousin. Remain back. I don't want to end up drawing you in as well, yells Arashi, because this technique is still unstable. The sand buildup is solid enough for people to walk on, Gaara states, there shouldn't be any problems for her to approach you. When I learned Shisakugutsu from Orochimaru, I knew it would be a last-ditch effort technique. I wasn't talking about the sand, I'm talking about the technique that made me into the monster I am now, Arashi explains. I had no idea how mentally and physically unstable it would be. As expected from Orochimaru, Tsunade states, giving out incomplete techniques and have others test them out for him. I take it you're a medic.nin? Is there nothing you can do for Arashi.ni? Chan? Sasama inquires. No, the technique is too unstable, as he mentioned, Tsunade says, and I might get caught in it or he might snap without warning. Arashi explains, Sasama, I knew I could never go back the moment I used this technique, but Kodahime and Kajiro are still saved. Take them with you, please, and get out of here. How about you, though? Sasama inquires. I've made my decision and must live and die with the consequences of it, Sasama. It is my destiny to pass away here today. Sasama, pay attention to me. Arashi says, go and tell Hanzaki to leave Ta no Kuni. Find someplace where the clan can be safe from Orochimaru's shadows, because now that we have failed, Orochimaru is going to destroy our clan. Arashi.ni. Chana. Arashi says, Konoha.nin. Get them out of here, because he senses that his thoughts are wandering once more. I'm not sure if I can stay sane for very long. Gaara says, you guys take those 3 back to the village of the Fuma clan. I'll finish things up here. I will catch up. All right Gaara, says Naruto. After hearing from Sasama about Arashi's warnings, Hanzaki called in the clan elders to discuss the situation and, with Tsunade's agreement, decided to relocate the clan to one of the underutilized sectors around Konoha. Gaara joins the other Konoha.nin at the entrance of Hanzaki's house an hour after the group arrived at the village of Fuma clan. Gaara, what took you so long? Kurenai inquires. I gave Arashi a proper burial away from the hidden base so that he would not be disturbed, Gaara continues. After that, I did one more sweep through the entire base to see if there is anything of interest. Have you discovered anything? Yugito queries. I found a few old plans, Gaara replies. I don't know if they have any value, but I will deliver them to Hokage Sama nonetheless. Before turning to face Hanzaki, Tsunade remarks, then it appears we are done here, emphasizing the importance of bed rest for both of them. It will be at least 2 days before Kodahime is able to move around. Kajiro won't be able to move around for at least a week. Naturally, Tsunade. Sama. I'll make sure they adhere to the stringent guidelines you left behind. Tsunade, Kurenai, and the three genin go to the mansion to report back to Minato as soon as the group gets back to Konoha. The group alters their plan after learning that the Hokage is hosting foreign dignitaries in his office at the Hokage Tower. The door to the Hokage's office eventually opens after a half-hour wait, revealing a number of well-known faces. Sagi, Dono, Toki, Haim, Dono, Naruto.san, it's good to see you again, Sagi responds. A voice behind Sagi and Toki asks, do you know this child Sagi, Dono? Allow me to introduce them, Minato responds. This is my son Namikaze Naruto and his teammates Sabakugara and Niyugito. They will be competing in the Chunin tournament this year. This is Yuhi Kurenai, their Junin instructor. And of course, this is one of the Sanin, Senju Tsunade. Sama. Yes, I'm well acquainted with Senju.san. I doubt there is anyone in no Kuni who doesn't know about Senju.san. Tsunade says, it's good to see you again, Daimyo. Dono, sporting a strained smile. As all three genin turn to face Tsunade with irritated expressions, Naruto asks, all right. How big of a debt did you run up in no Kuni Tsunade.ba-chan? Ah, don't worry about it child, whatever she owed our casinos Konoha paid back already. Naruto sees a frowning girl standing next to the daimyo as he turns to face the smiling man. The daimyo nudges the girl forward to introduce herself after noticing Naruto's sidelong glance. This is my daughter Haruna. We've heard quite a bit about you Naruto, and we expect to see quite a show in the Chunin tournament this year. I'll be sure not to disappoint Daimyo. Dono, Haruna, Haim, Dono. When Naruto bows to Haruna and her father, a faint flush appears on her face. Nevertheless, despite Haruna's blush, Yugito and Gaara observe that the frown is still visible on her face. Good. I'd hate to see the hero of Tori no Kuni lose in the first round, Sagi responds. The daimyo of no Kuni asks, hero of Tori no Kuni? Naruto.san exposed the murderers of my father and protected my brother from multiple assassination attempts during his mission to Tori no Kuni, Toki continues. Ah yes. My condolences for the loss of Lord Owashi Sagi. Dono, the daimyo of no Kuni responds. Thank you daimyo. Dono, Sagi responds, and for his deeds in Tori no Kuni, my people have recognized Naruto.san and his team as heroes of the country. I see. Quite a reputation for someone so young, but I suppose the baby hero is used to such praises. I do not deserve such lofty titles. I was merely performing my assigned duties at the time. Modest as well. You are truly blessed to have a son such as this Hokage, Sama. Thank you for such high praises daimyo. Dono, Minato responds. I shall have someone escort you all to our finest hotel. Yes, we will not keep you from your duties any longer. Have a good day Hokage. Sama, Sagi responds. Minato motions for Tsunade and the three kids to come into his office after the group has departed. Tsunade sets the written mission report on his desk, and Minato sits down to wait. I never thought that Orochimaru's influence stretches quite so far, Minato says after reading the report. I expected Ta no Kuni, but Umi no Kuni and Cha no Kuni as well. They were all rather obscure bases, almost completely abandoned by Orochimaru for outliving their usefulness. Tsunade continues, however, we managed to root out both Tsurugi Masumi and Akadu Yoroi as Orochimaru's spies. As long as we brought them up, I thought Jiraiya was keeping an eye on those three. How did those two manage to get all the way to Umi no Kuni? Kabuto split off from the group and Jiraiya. Sensei deemed Kabuto a higher priority target. By the time Jiraiya Sensei's spies got to that town their trails went cold. The report Jiraiya Sensei got said that those two might have left town via the port, according to Minato. Of course, Kabuto managed to give Jiraiya Sensei the slip soon afterward as well. No one from Konoha has heard from him since. And now that creates the problem of having to deal with Yakushi Kabuto and how to fill those 3 spots in the Chunin tournament, Tsunade explains. I will arrange for someone to take their place, Minato responds. Are there anything else you would like to add to the mission report? I left Ibiki in charge of interrogating Rakusho Aoi. He'll give you the report on all the information pertaining to a Megacure if he hasn't yet already, Tsunade continues, seeing that the Fuma clan hasn't arrived yet, and won't until after the Chunin tournament. That leaves the issue of how to deal with Morino Idate. The little kid that stole the Raijin no Kenna, Minato responds. The sword is a Senju family heirloom, so I'll leave it to you to decide his punishment, Tsunade.ba-chan. I guess I owe it to Ibiki to let the kid off easy. He deserves at least that much for all his years of service, Tsunade continues. The kid only followed his Junin. Sensei's orders and we already retrieved the sword safe and sound. After all these years of self-imposed exile, I think the kid already served his punishment. Very well. I will give the order for Ibiki to let him go, Minato responds, and I've just finished meeting with the last group of dignitaries arriving for the Chunin tournament. So I guess we'll go home together. I'll take the Raijin no Ken and go see Tenten. Chan, Naruto responds. I did promise her that I'd bring her back a present. She's training with Temari and Hiku out in Training Ground 3, says Minato. They only left a couple of hours ago, so I doubt they've finished already. You can probably find them there. In roughly 5 minutes, Naruto makes his way across the rooftops to Training Ground 3. Naruto waits and observes the girls while leaning against a tree that encircles the training area. The girls pretend to ignore the newcomer and carry on with their training, but they all draw their weapons when they realize that someone has just arrived to watch them. As a group, they turn to face the newcomer and launch their attack, pinning Naruto to the tree. With his sleeve pinned to the tree by the kunai Tenten through, Naruto says, "Hey, hi girls," and waves feebly. Back from your mission Naruto.kun. Temari grumbles darkly, seems like a rather extended trip for someone who is going to be participating in the Chunin tournament next week. Well, there was some complications and one mission turned into 3. So where is this present that you promised me Naruto.kun? Tenten inquires. Can you girls let me down first? Tenten pretends to smile innocently and says, that depends on your gift, Naruto.kun. If I don't like the gift, then I'll get really upset, and then Temari, Chan and Hiku. Chan will get upset because I am. Since you're the only one here, we're just going to have to take out our frustrations on you, Temari responds. And let me remind you that our aim tends to falter when we are upset, Hiku responds. Naruto is confident in the present he got the girl, but the threat is so flimsy that it makes him shudder. Tenten's kunai pinned him to the tree by both pant legs and sleeves after Temari's wind attack slammed his back onto it. Hiku landed senbon millimeters above his head, beneath both armpits, and beneath a very sensitive spot below his waist. Isaribi will find herself a roommate at the hospital for a prolonged stay if they follow through on their threats. It's in my weapon pouch, in the red sealed scroll. Tenten uses one of the senbon on the tree to cut her thumb, then wipes her blood on the seal after retrieving the scroll that was described. Tenten reaches into the smoke and retrieves the sheathed Raijin no Ken. Tenten's eyes enlarge as he carefully removes the valuable sword, appreciating its craftsmanship throughout. Tenten straps the sword to her side calmly and slowly, then looks up at Naruto before jumping on him and kissing him on the lips. Her weight pulls him to the ground, causing the weapons that are pinning him to the tree to sever the fabrics and remove the senbon that is dangerously close to very sensitive parts of Naruto's body. I guess that means she likes it, answers Hiku. He did get her a new weapon, Temari shrugs, adding, what did you expect? Tenten pressed her cheek against Naruto's as he slurred, I got you something too, Temari. Chan, it's in the green scroll. Temari raises an eyebrow, picks up the scroll from the floor, and opens it to reveal what's inside. Temari returns her focus to Naruto after taking out the object and examining it for a few minutes. A gunbai? The large tesson you have is a bit cumbersome in close-range combat, says Naruto. I thought that a gunbai would help you out in that regard while still allowing you to use your wind-based techniques. That's really thoughtful of you Naruto.kun. Naruto asks, you don't like it? As he finally separates from Tenten. No, I love it. I'm just thinking how am I going to Lihei Tenten, do you know how to fight with one of these? Sarcastically, Tenten asks, is it a weapon? Right. Ask a stupid question, get a stupid answer. A voice yells from the trees, Hiku.kun. Are you finished with your training? Oh no, not her, murmurs Hiku. Just before a red-haired girl enters the clearing, Hiku is able to put her arms around Naruto's right. The confused expression on the red-haired girl's face as she stares at Naruto's right arm makes Tenten and Temari laugh, especially when they see how Hiku almost attempts to incorporate the arm into her body. The girl asks, Hiku. Kuna, why are you a? It's like what I've told you the entire time Karen, I'm a girl. Hiku responds with annoyance. Naruto.kun here is my boyfriend, he just got back from a mission. Boyfriend? What do you mean boyfriend? Ask Naruto and Karen simultaneously. The two's response makes Tenten and Temari snort. Naruto is forced to stand up straight and stop talking after Hiku gently pinches him in the back, causing pain to radiate up and down his spine. Whispering, please just play along Naruto.san, Hiku says. Karen asks, you really are a girl? Yes. Hiku unconsciously backs off as Karen squints her eyes and leans in to stare at her. Karen frowns and shifts her gaze to Naruto. then back and forth between the two. Karen removes her glasses and pinches the bridge of her nose while groaning. You mean all this time I've been chasing after a girl? Karen grumbles. Haku says, sorry. Karen confronts Naruto by asking, are you sure you're good enough to be Haku-chan's boyfriend? According to Tamari, I can assure you he is more than adequate, as she puts her arms around Naruto from behind. Especially considering he can handle all three of us at the same time, Tenten remarks as she approaches Naruto's left. Karen mutters in shock, all three at the same time? That's giving out a bit too much information, Tenten-chan, Tamari responds. Well, he can't exactly be the baby hero if he can't even do a simple thing like that, Haku responds. Karen asks, baby hero? He's the baby hero? That's right, says Tamari. Karen steps back and looks at Naruto while pushing her glasses up. Being the focus of the strange girl's attention unnerves Naruto, who unconsciously steps back and positions Tenten and Haku in front of him to protect himself. Karen says, Oi, can you two move out of the way, while maintaining eye contact with Naruto. Tenten crosses her arms and sulks, what exactly are you looking for anyway? That's none of your business, Karen claims as she approaches and pushes Tenten aside before using her finger to trace Naruto's chin. Forget about these three, sweetie. Whatever they can do, I can do better. Tamari pushes Karen's hand away and says, you keep your hands off of him. Come on, Naruto-kun, let's leave. The four Konoha.nin run away from the insane redhead after leaving the training ground. However, even though Karen had never been to Konoha prior to the Chunin exam, she always finds them wherever they go. They keep playing this strange game of hide and seek until the sun sets, at which point Tamari and Tenten decide to go home because they are so sick of being followed. An exhausted Naruto staggers through the Namikaze Manor's front door a few hours later. Minato smirks and asks, long day? Naruto acknowledges that Tenten and Tamari must have told everyone what transpired at the training ground. Yeah, I had to run for my life when Zabuza tried to lob my head off after I walked Haku-chan home, he comments. I'm surprised he hasn't come knocking down the door yet. Haku-chan dragged him home. Have you heard the story about that Karen girl yet? Yeah. Heard it all when she followed Tamari-chan, Tenten-chan, Haku-chan and I all over the village. What do you think? Minato inquires, did you ever meet her in your past life? Pretty sure I saw her a few times before with the Uchiha, says Naruto. She said that Haku-chan saved her in the Forest of Death. The Uchiha must have done that back then, that's why she followed him around. So this time she's following Haku because Haku saved her, Minato continues, she should be trustworthy then. I don't know about that, Naruto responds, based on her actions, I would have to assume that she saw the Uchiha as a romantic interest back then. Minato smirks as she remarks, I heard that she has a new romantic interest this time around. Thus we are back to the reason for all the chaos today, Naruto continues, but if you want my opinion of her joining Konoha, if I have to think like a Hokage, I'll let her join. We're in agreement there, Minato asserts, we just have to ensure her loyalty to Konoha. Having someone with her skill set can only be beneficial to Konoha. Speaking of which, I never got a chance to ask you with the 3 missions, Naruto responds, why did you change the rules of the Chunin tournament? With what's coming, it's nothing but trouble for Konoha. Well, why don't you tell me your concerns, and I'll answer them. First, by spreading the tournament over a week and a half, we have to prepare for Orochimaru's attack for the entire duration. That is true, but there were 2 key weapons Orochimaru unleashed on the village back then. Gaara and Edo Tensei, says Minato. Gaara is on our side this time around, and we've already taken action in dealing with the Edo Genin. Granted, he could use others, but I've ordered extra security around the burial sites as well. But to do a 10-day tournament, doesn't that prevent us from taking missions for 9 extra days? Did you ever presided over any Chunin tournaments? No, things were a bit too hectic to host any tournaments. Well, I guess it makes sense that you don't know about how things work then, Minato responds. Many of our missions come from merchants from Konoha requesting escort to and from the village as they peddle their wares to the surrounding towns. With so many people coming into the village, they really don't need to send their wares to other villages, so we can keep that part of the shinobi force within the village to help with its defense. Also, with all the genin participating in the tournament, we also free up their Junin instructors to protect the village as well. So the village really isn't risking additional exposure to attacks or additional loss of revenue regardless of the length of the tournament. In fact, I think the village makes more money by extending the tournament. Naruto stammers, Watabuda, I suppose that makes sense. There is no way the villages would be willing to do this if it causes the village any trouble, says Minato, We actually got the villages to agree to a rotating order of hosting the exam instead of electing a site every time one is held because of this change. The tournament is great for the hosting village, but normally the first 2 tasks cost the village more money than what the tournament brings in. This little change generates just enough money to make it economically profitable to host the Chunin exam. I still think it's too much of a risk to extend the window of opportunity for Orochimaru by that much. That was the reason I gave your team the 3rd mission. Truth be told, your squad was just one of many that I sent out, says Minato, and we managed to take out quite a few of Orochimaru's bases based on Amachi's information. That should have weakened his forces considerably. It's not really his forces that I'm worried about, Naruto replies. If Suna is on his side this time around, we are still going to have a major fight on our hand. Jiraiya Sensei is keeping a close eye on Suna as we speak, says Minato. I sent him there after Kabuto's trail went cold. His last report said that the Suna.nin are gathering back at their village, most likely preparing for a full-on assault. I was holding out hope that they would change their mind after Tamari told me what Konkaru told her and Gaara. Minato says with a sigh, but yes, that's the conclusion Jiraiya Sensei and I arrived at as well. So the war starts again. Let me worry about the invasion, says Minato. You just focus on doing what you need to do for the tournament. So any idea who are taking the spots of Kabuto's team? The new schedule will be sent out tomorrow. According to Minato, we have to replace the Auto team as well since we placed them under arrest. Under arrest? For what? Auto installing spies in our rank is an act of war. According to Minato, we have the authority to arrest them and interrogate them for any other actions their village might have taken against Konoha. So that's what you meant when you said they were taken care of, Naruto responds. A rather convenient excuse to take them out of the picture. What about a? Like I said, just let me worry about the invasion, says Minato. You should concentrate on putting up a show in the tournament. Fine, but if there's any trouble, don't think for a moment that I won't help out. When the tournament day finally comes, Naruto turns to face the other members of the group gathered on the stadium floor as the competitors assemble there to be recognized by the spectators. Standing where he is now, facing the 6 new competitors, he can only accept the facts, even though he couldn't quite believe the names he saw on the updated schedule as replacements for the 2 disqualified teams. Lee and Yakumo. Chan I can understand, Yugito says as he speaks. Heck, even Idate, Kajiro, Chan, and Sasama. Chan had ninja training, but Isaribi. Chan too. Well, at least Tsunade.ba. Chan got rid of all the scales on her body. I was under the impression that the Fuma clan will not arrive until after the tournament, says Gaara. And they won't. Kodahime.san was under order to bring Sasama, Chan and Kajiro.san to Konoha and try to see if there are any ways for them to enter. According to Naruto, they want to have some kind of demonstration of their prowess before arriving so they can gain some positive reputation with the rest of Konoha's clans. I suppose that is understandable, Yugito responds. They want to secure a foothold as the new kids in town. If their purpose is a demonstration of their abilities, then the draw has been most unkind to them, Gaara states. Sasama.san is in your group while Kajiro.san is in mine. Well, at least you don't know them that well yet. I got Yakumo Chan in my group, Yugito responds. Idate is in Hinata, Chan and Haku, Chan's group. Tamari, Chan got a completely new group with Lee and Isaribi. Chan, says Naruto. Well, at least the draw is keeping the tournament fun. I'm surprised that no one complained about Konoha taking all 6 vacated slots, Yugito responds. I mean, it's practically Konoha's tournament right now. 24 genin and 21 of them are from Konoha. Your brother's team is the only one not from this village Gaara. Well, Dad did send messages to all the participating villages to see if they want to sign anyone up for the tournament. Nobody applied. Naruto continues. Technically, Kabuto's team's spots belong to Konoha anyway, and with the espionage considered an act of war, Konoha has the right to demand Otogakure's spots as reparation. Though if you ask me, the other villages just don't want to have their genin embarrassed considering who are in the tournament this year. I guess it's better to be an unknown entity than to be known to stink, says Yugito. That's one way of putting it, smirking, Naruto says. I think they are going to announce our names to the crowd now, Gaara states. We should move to join our groups to be presented. Shiranui Genma, the proctor, gives the 24 genin the signal to move and form 8 columns, 1 for each of the tournament's groups. Following the conclusion of the introductions, Naruto turns to face his opponent for the first match, Shikamaru. However, Shikamaru signals to Genma that he is forfeiting this match before the other genin left the stadium grounds. Naruto asks, what the heck are you doing, Shikamaru? I've already assessed this group's makeup and our difference in skills. Fighting against you would be the worst strategic move to make, says Shikamaru. I don't have any means of defeating you in this match, and if I have to make it to the tournament proper, with the rules of this stage as they are, I'd be better off avoiding injuries, conserving my energy, and preparing to win my second match. Then I can advance as second place in the group, considering there is a slim to none chance that you would lose your second match. He's certainly thinking like a chunin, Genma responds. Well, guess you get a bye this round, Naruto. Arg, I should have known you would do something like this, you lazy bastard. I still have to make it to the tournament proper, otherwise I would never hear the end of it from my mom and Ino. Shikamaru says as he walks towards the bleachers. That's why I have to do this. Otherwise, I might just be tempted enough to see exactly how strong you are. Given that Nara Shikamaru has forfeited this match, Genma says, we will proceed directly to the second match of the first round. Sabaku Tamari vs Rock Lee. Tamari remarks, that lazy bastard will never change, as she passes Naruto. That is a most unyouthful action to take by Nara-san. I think he's actually putting an effort into this tournament. At least he planned out his path to the tournament, says Naruto. Have fun you too. This will be an interesting match to see, I'm sure. As Lee assumes his taijutsu stance, Tamari releases the heavy tesson from her back and slams it to the ground after everyone has left the area. As Genma starts the match, the audience is still muttering about the absence of a match featuring the Yondaime Hokage's son. Lee's leg slams against the metal tesson as Tamari, ignoring the crowd, raises it. Just as she finishes the spin, Tamari uses the momentum to use the Kamaitachi no Jutsu after pushing the green clad genin away and spinning around, opening the tesson in the process. Lee gets caught in the enormous tornado and is blown several meters away before plummeting out of it. With a weary glance at Lee's arm and leg warmers, Tamari murmurs, how? That attack should have sent him to the walls, and Lessa, just how much weight is he carrying in those things? Yosh. It would appear that Guy.2 San's new training regiment is paying off. Lee responds, we shall engage in the most youthful battle. No, Lee, don't leave yourself wide open like that, Naruto responds. What are you talking about, Naruto-kun? Hinata inquires. Lee. San's taijutsu stance is very solid. It's not his fighting stance that I'm worried about, Naruto responds. Yuha no, Tamari replies quietly, the rights to that kind of battle with me is only reserved for Naruto-kun. Naruto murmurs upstairs, stop Lee, don't say anything, eliciting interested looks from everyone. Get out of this discussion before you get caught too deep. I understand that Naruto-san is an excellent shinobi, but I can assure you that I can be just as capable. What part of no don't you understand? There is nothing preventing you from battling against me when Naruto-san is not available. Lee is too stunned to dodge the blow as Tamari screams, what kind of Scarlet Woman do you take me to be? And swings the closed tesson at his head. As the other residents of the area start to understand what Tamari is saying in her conversation with Lee, Naruto is back up at the combatant's box, pounding his head against the railings and muttering about idiots. A number of shinobi, including Kiba and Idate, are laughing so hard that they are rolling on the ground. Those who are close to Gaara can see a ghost of a smirk on his face, despite the fact that he is off to the side and seems emotionless as ever during combat. Kankuru, on the other side of the room, must choose between laughing and seriously hurting Naruto in order to protect her sister's honor. Yugito teases the other genin in the room with, how come you never talked to me about having any most youthful battles, Naruto-kun? The other genin laughs. As this is going on, Lee has just emerged from the debris of the wall that collapsed during Temari's final assault. After making the final connection, Lee starts frantically waving his hands to try to persuade Tamari that his remarks were misinterpreted and expresses regret for the implication. If you are really sorry, then stand still and take your beating like a man. Righteous feminine fury is a very scary thing, isn't it? Kiba responds. I've seen it every time anyone tries to put any move on my sister. Do you really think it's righteous feminine fury? Naruto responds. Tamari is smirking. She's just taking advantage of Lee's simple mindedness. Kankuru responds, you're right, she is smirking. Though I'm not sure how well that's going to work. Gaara responds. Lee.san is built to take a lot of punishment and still manages to keep going. But at least we learn to never let her talk when fighting against her, Neji continues. She has a sharp enough tongue to cut any inexperienced shinobi apart before the fight even start. And what kind of experience are you talking about, Neji? Naruto responds. Neji straightens his face and responds, both kinds, while Hinata shakes her head at Neji's lack of maturity. Well, I guess now I know why you wouldn't want her talking if you two ever get into a fight, Naruto replies. You're not exactly what someone calls experienced in a certain area, are you? As Neji sputters, Hinata asks, Neji.ni.san, where do you think Tamari.san learned to talk like that? Naruto smiles cheekily and says, from Yugito. Chan most likely, while Hinata rolls her eyes and smiles back. Returning to the stadium floor, Lee stands motionless in the center of the arena while Tamari uses her Tessin to deliver vicious blows. So much so that tiny dents begin to show up on the battle fan's metal frame. However, Lee's face and probably the rest of his body only have minor bruises from the shots. These are undoubtedly insufficient to impair the fighting skills of someone who trained with Maeda Guy every day. Tamari yells in frustration, you don't even look winded after all those shots, just what the hell is your body made of? I cannot allow myself to flinch from the strikes, Lee asserts, it would be unyouthful of me to move away from the strikes that I deserve from such shameful insinuations. Up in the observer's box, Naruto remarks, and she started so well too, but he also notes that this match isn't exactly displaying combat on par with Chunin. Yugito asks, what do you mean Naruto.kun? Against an opponent that's stronger than you, use whatever means necessary to throw off his or her game, says Naruto. She did that well with her words, but she didn't take advantage, or rather, couldn't. And she destroyed her weapon along with it. Gaara continues, with all those dents, I'd be amazed if that fan even opens now. I see your point. Yugito responds, this is basically an exhibition on what not to do. Now that she is back on the arena floor, Tamari is beginning to reach the same conclusion that Naruto's group did. Normally, she would turn her wrist to open the fan. Now, even when she applies both hands to it, it remains stationary. Lee returns to his battle stance as Tamari's blows slow, causing Tamari to jump back and get ready to defend. By your slowing movements, it would appear that your anger has been suitably sated, Lee states, therefore, it's time for the actual match to begin. Tamari takes a small step back on her right foot out of alarm, which puts her on the defensive and leaves her vulnerable to Lee's attack. Tamari tries desperately to pull away enough to let her use the big battle fan again on offense, cursing herself for the rookie error. Even though Tamari was able to block Lee's kick with her fan before it hit her midsection, she is abruptly lifted off her feet after stumbling a little from avoiding the repeated blows. Lee's subsequent punch, which twisted Tamari's body in midair, only managed to graze her side rather than land true, but it still caused her to wince in agony. This is insane. Even though the punch only slightly injured me, it had enough force to cause pain, and my hands are numb from blocking the kick. Tamari muses to herself, but I think I can at least keep up with his movements for now. But he's too fast, and there's no way I would have enough time to swing the battle fan to generate enough momentum to cause any kind of damage, and there is no chance I can do anything else with it except use it as a shield with all those dents. Tamari gathers chakra to her arm and throws the broken battle fan at Lee, looking down at her new makeshift battering ram. The speed and force of the attack caught Lee off guard, and he barely escaped the battle fan. Tamari, however, took advantage of the momentary pause to advance and strike with a punch that was enhanced by chakra. Lee is off balance and can only attempt to deflect the blow with a punch of his own. Before the force of the recoil sends the two rolling on the floor apart, a shock wave from Tamari's chakra. Enhanced punch and Lee's Guken kicked up dust all over the arena floor. Tamari feels the onset of a sprained wrist and a torn muscle on her forearms, despite the chakra strengthening her arm muscles. Tamari focuses the medical technique to restore full use of her right arm by running through quick hand seals. Such power, Lee remarks, rolling his shoulder and flexing his wrist to restore sensation to his arm. I see that guy. Sensei was not exaggerating when he said that Tsunade Sama's punch can be very devastating, he adds. Naruto murmurs, Hama I wonder, as he looks down at the arena floor. Yugito asks, what is it Naruto.kun? Even if Lee is built to take a lot of damage, doesn't it seem odd that he still looks like he hasn't taken any damage at all? Gaara asks, you think he would use that already? I think he might have been using it the whole time, Naruto responds, but would he push it to the third one in this fight? Normally, I would say no, but this is Lee we are talking about here, Yugito responds. Then I hope for her sake that Tamari-chan can finish this quickly. Tamari is forced to defend as Lee has already recovered enough to advance once more to the arena floor. Tamari successfully lands a kick on Lee's stomach after deflecting a string of punches and kicks away from her body. She then uses the surface to jump back, increasing the distance between herself and Lee. With her right arm wandering to her sides, Tamari reaches for a tiny paper fan that is fastened to her side. Lee tries to stop Tamari before she can use her wind attacks again after spotting the weapon. But rather than launching enormous wind attacks, Tamari just flicks her wrist a couple of times, creating a slight breeze, and then leaps back from Lee's kick. Tamari snaps the fan shut, turns her wrist one last time, and then calmly ties it back to her side. Lee's eyes are totally out of focus as he stumbles around the area where he landed following the kick. I didn't think I would need to resort to using that to win this fight, Tamari states. The pollen is a pain in the rear to replace. Tamari draws out a kunai and presses it to Lee's neck, then takes out another paper that is fastened to her left waist. As Lee's eyes focus again, Tamari presses harder on the kunai and waves it a couple of times in front of Lee's nose. What happened? Tamari draws a tiny bit of blood with the kunai and says, I suggest for you to forfeit. The match is over, says Genma. Winner of the match is Tamari. Once the last fight's debris has been cleared away, Genma signals Tenten and Konkaru, the opponents of the upcoming match, to the stadium floor. Many of the Konoha shinobi in attendance are aware of the gesture when Sari and Matsuri approach Konkaru, but he chooses to ignore them and go toward the stairwell. Match Day 1, Group C, first match, Senju Tenten vs Sabaku Konkaru, begin, Genma says. Let's see if you're good enough to deserve to use the Senju name, Konkaru replies. My name has nothing to do with my abilities as a ninja, Tenten responds, but if you insist, I would be more than willing to show you how Konoha.nin do combat. Konkaru taunts, you can talk, but can you back it up? Allow me to show you a fighting style that frightens even your own sister, Tenten responds. You'll find that I'm nothing like her. You might as well unwrap your little dolls, Tenten responds. Tamari already told me what you are studying in Suna. Konkaru pulls out 2 puppets and says, yeah, well, that's what I figured, adding, Karasu, Kuroari, and I will end this quickly. I'm going to enjoy smashing your dolls to bits, Tenten responds. Grown man playing with dolls and wearing makeup, you ought to be ashamed. What did you say? It wouldn't be so bad if you've accepted your feminine behaviors, but to have all that and still pretend to be a macho man? Tenten responds. Tamari got so sick of it that she offered me money to beat some sense into you. Naruto asks Gaara upstairs, is that true? She might have mentioned it. Sure is effective in pissing Konkaru off though, Naruto responds. You know she learned how to trash talk from you, right? Haku responds. Why does everyone automatically assume that it's me? Nobody responded to Naruto's query. Instead, they just raised their eyebrows in his direction. Shrugging his shoulders and muttering to himself, Naruto turns back to face Haku. Tsunade. Chan is not happy with me, is she? Tsunade. Sama doesn't mind it so much. Tenten's learning how to take while she's learning how to give after all. It can help her survive in the field later on, as you can see from what happened to Lee earlier. Haku continues, Shizune. Senpei however. That's even worse, Naruto thinks. I can deal with whatever physical pain Tsunade. Chan can dish out, but Shizune. Chan's guilt trips hurts 100 times worse. Everyone who has ever encountered the second in command of Konoha's medical corps has said, I know exactly what you mean, while standing in the competitor's rest area. I still remember the last time I missed a routine checkup, Kiba recounts, the disappointed look in her eyes. I never want to see it again. As Tamari enters the competitor's box, she asks, hey, what's with the depressing atmosphere? Apparently, they are all recalling moments of mental torture by someone by the name of Shizune, says Sari. Mental torture? Shizune. Senpei. Tamari responds, oh, you mean her guilt trips? Well, I can see how that can be a bit depressing. Matsuri demands, it's that bad? Oh yeah, Tamari replies with an uncontrollable shudder. Naruto asks, hey Tamari, Chan, when did you come back? When you were all sulking about, and I quote sorry, mental torture by someone by the name of Shizune. That was an interesting move to end your match, Tamari-san, Ino responds, some kind of hallucinogen on the paper of that fan? A good magician never reveals her tricks, Tamari explains while gesturing with her palm. Well, it's pretty clear what you did, Ino responds. I just want to know what you used. Not telling, Tamari responds. The 2 shinobi who make it out of Group B faces the 2 that make it out of Group G in the first round of the tournament proper, and unless you can somehow beat Neji, chances are if you make it to the tournament you'll be fighting against me. Do you really think I'll tell you how to counter my technique? It's worth a try, suggests Ino with a shrug. Tamari raises an eyebrow and asks, subtlety is not a strong suit for you, is it? Naruto pauses before whistling. Hama, I wonder how Chan is Doa. Wow, that's a lot of weapons, Yugito remarks. Konkaru must have placed seals in his puppet's weapon chambers. According to Gaara, it seems impossible that he could hide all those weapons in those 2 small puppets otherwise. Genma has long since withdrawn to the walls on the arena floor in order to escape the onslaught from both sides. The ground between Tenten and Konkaru is covered in various throwing weapons. and they are standing a good 20 paces apart. At least some of those weapons were fired from the puppets, as evidenced by the joints of Karasu and Kuroari hovering in front of Konkaru. Tenten taunts, "What's wrong? Out of weapons already?" Konkaru remarks, "A puppeteer is never out of weapons," as the two puppets start to separate and turn into bladed weapons. Tenten says, "I guess playtime's over," as she pulls out another weapon. Tamari asks, "Is that Akioketsu Shoge? A metal ringa, a long ropia, a short dagger with a spike on the side?" Haku responds, "That's what it looks like." Matsuri asks, "One little blade against all those puppet parts?" Haku says, "It's Tenten," with a shrug. Sari asks, "Is that supposed to explain everything?" "Yeah, pretty much," replies Tamari. Konkaru sends the parts after Tenten while flexing his fingers. Tenten swings her arm around, slings the ring around her left wrist, and hurls the blade in the direction of the puppets. Konkaru moves the puppet pieces around the blade with his fingers, but as soon as the blade passes, the parts begin to fall out of the air. Tenten has already drawn the blade back and thrown it at Konkaru's head before Konkaru can reconnect the chakra thread to the components. Konkaru reforms Kuroari in front of himself to serve as a shield by drawing his arms in, and the blade clanks innocuously against the puppet's body. Tenten has already moved in close and punched Kuroari's head into the competitor's box before he can separate the puppet's joints once more. The girl is forced to retreat when Konkaru throws the Karasu parts at her before Tenten can gain the upper hand. Tenten smirks at Konkaru and launches a few practice right jabs in an attempt to further taunt him. Tamari says, "Konkaru's gonna blow," while clutching Kuroari's head. Pulling his fist, Konkaru yells, "Kurihiji! Sanshuo! Go to hell you bitch!" Tenten is trapped inside the shell of a huge puppet that appears out of nowhere. Tenten is soon in a shell from which purple smoke emerges. Konkaru smirks and says, "And that ends the match." Genma is about to call the match when Tenten jumps out of the trap and a sword of light punches through the shell before it explodes. Before Tenten releases all of the poison she was compelled to breathe in while imprisoned inside Sanshuo back at Konkaru, her cheek abruptly puffs out while she is in the air. Kurihiji. Senin Hoka. Konkaru moves Sanshuo to face Tenten and turns on the device that lets the puppet shoot a huge ball of fire at his adversary. When the fire and poison mist come into contact, a huge explosion occurs, sending the two genin reeling back to their separate ends of the arena. Konkaru flexes his fingers and manipulates the three puppets in front of him, including Kuroari's head, which he used chakra threads to draw out of Temari's hands while he was in the air after the explosion. Tenten, meanwhile, is standing at the opposite end of the arena, holding the little pike in one hand and Raijin no Ken in the other. Tenten taps her right foot on the floor while she looks at the slightly burned hem of her right pant leg to make sure her right ankle isn't hurt. After hopping in place a few times for safety, Tenten is satisfied and assumes a fighting stance, using her right hand to hold the Raijin no Ken parallel to the ground in front of her face and her left to swing the rope connecting the pike. "I have to give Konkaru a bit of credit," Tamari states. "He's lasted a lot longer than I thought he would." "Such little faith in your own brother," Sari remarks. "Tenten's been playing around with Konkaru a bit too much," Tamari states. "She should have been able to finish the match before I even got back up here." "You're underestimating your own brother and your own birth village," says Sari. "No, Tenten learned a lot more under Tsunade. Shisho than I did," Tamari responds. "Pure fighting ability. She's an even stronger fighter than I am." "It won't last much longer now, not with her using that," Haku responds. Tenten throws the pike at Konkaru after swinging the rope a couple of times. In response, Konkaru blocks the weapon by moving Sanshuo out of the way, preventing it from slicing through his chakra threads as it once did. To stop any further attacks, Konkaru moves his fingers to send Karasu and Kuroari, but the Raijin no Ken can easily dismantle the two puppets. Konkaru leaps onto Sanshuo's back, activates the metal shields, and manipulates the shattered pieces of his other two puppets to bolster his defense. However, Tenten's simple left punch knocks the large metal shields off Sanshuo, leaving Konkaru stunned. Tenten forces the Sunagenin to surrender by swinging the Raijin no Ken around and resting the sword directly next to Konkaru's jugular. The crowd is eager for the cleanup crew to move quickly and the genin to start the fourth match of the first day in order to keep up the action after the disappointment of missing the first match and the excitement created by the next two matches. This is especially true since the baby hero's teammates are involved in the next two matches. In the competitor's box, Yakumo is anxiously observing her opponent. Yugito is carelessly flirting with Naruto, as she always does. Yakumo turns her head abruptly, feeling that someone is standing beside her, and she has to suppress a gasp when she sees Gaara staring at her rather than Yugito and Naruto as everyone else is. Don't be so nervous, Yakumo-san. Gaara advises. You cannot perform to the best of your abilities if you are so tense. Gaara-san, you surprised me. There is no need for you to be so nervous. The purpose of this tournament is to showcase your abilities to handle situations that a Chunin might face. Gaara continues. Whether you win or lose your matches matters little. But Yugito-chan is so strong, Yakumo responds. I don't even know if I would have a chance to show anything. There is one area where you are strong than the three of us. That was before the Edo was defeated. No, even after that, you are still better than us in crafting illusions, Gaara responds. Yugito and Naruto might not have noticed, but I know you still have the ability to cast real genjutsu. Yakumo's eyes widen as he asks, how did you I arrived at the training ground early one day while Kurenai-sensei was lecturing Naruto and Yugito. I haven't perfected that particular technique yet. It's still a little spotty on whether it works or not. Yugito puts her arm around Yakumo's shoulder and pulls the girl along, saying, Hama, looks like our turn's up. Let's go and give them a show. Gaara waits until Yakumo is nearly at the corner leading to the stairs, crossing his arms and staring at his overly excited teammate. Then, he gives the girl a small nod of encouragement. Yugito exclaims, let's give them a good show, Yakumo-chan, after the two contestants arrive on the arena floor. As you wish, Yugito-san. Genma asks, are you two ready? Yugito exclaims, ready as can be, while jumping in anticipation. Please begin the match, Yakumo says. Match Day 1, Group D, first match, Ni Yugito vs Kurama Yakumo, begin. When Genma starts the match, Yugito performs a series of hand seals before attacking her opponent with Raiden Jibashi. However, Yakumo just vanishes from her view prior to the attack. Yugito raises her hands and creates the typical illusion. Breaking seal after searching the area without locating her opponent. I know all about your specialties, Yakumo-chan, I trained with you after all, Yugito says with a grin, Kai. Yugito is shocked to discover Yakumo standing in front of her, shattering the illusion. Yakumo vanishes into a pink mist following a barrage of blows, including 2 kicks and an elbow from the Kurama. Yugito is able to front flip away from the girl before delivering the last blow from behind. That's Kurenai-sensei's Koyumu, proclaims Yugito. I've continued my training with Kurenai-sensei whenever she was available, Yakumo responds, now let's see if you can keep up with me. A flurry of pink leaves envelops Yakumo as she stomps on the ground, and then she is once more out of Yugito's view. Yugito feels herself being pushed back before Yakumo emerges in front of her and showers her with rain before she can break the illusion. Yakumo says, Genjutsu, Shinkaru, as Yugito rolls away from the Kurama and hits the ground. Not bad at all, Yakumo-chan, Yugito responds. Your taijutsu is starting to pack a bit of a punch too. Guess your body has completely recovered. Indeed, Kurenai-sensei has worked very hard with me to improve my physical conditions. Yugito can raise his arms to block something approaching from her left just by instinct. Yugito's eyes enlarge as she witnesses another Yakumo collide with her, and she is unable to react as the Yakumo explodes into pink mist. Before the enormous lotus blossom bursts and she is thrown against the walls, she is standing atop it when she becomes conscious of her surroundings once more. As Yugito stands up and wipes the dust from her body, she says, Genjutsu. Kasumi followed by Megan. Hanagasumi, it seems that I've underestimated you a great deal, Yakumo-chan, pulling off all these techniques one after the other, and I'm going to make sure Kurenai-sensei teach me all those techniques after this is all over. I'm not done yet, Yugito-san. It's my turn now. Reigen Rikochu. The sudden bright light temporarily blinds Yakumo, who is powerless to stop Yugito from getting close and punching her in the stomach. Yugito leaps out of range before Yakumo can strike back, landing 10 feet away and placing her right hand on the ground. Denpo Seka, Raiden Jibashi is a lightning surge that originates from Yugito's right hand and spreads to Yakumo's feet. The girl must jump out of the way to avoid receiving an electric shock from the technique. The lightning surge, already anticipating her opponent's next move, grows into a wolf and continues to pursue Yakumo using Raiju Hashiri no Jutsu. Yakumo dodges into one of the few trees that are scattered across the arena floor, but he is just in time to see the lightning beast strike one of the trees, severing it in two. You like your lightning attacks so much, let's see how you like this one. Yakumo yells. Hajutsu. Genjutsu Jitsuka. Byakureiko. Genma is forced to jump up in the air away from the lightning strike as it suddenly strikes the ground just inches from her and dozens of feet away from Yugito. Genma starts yelling enough expletives to make even the most foul, mouths Sailor blush, and Yakumo gasps and begins nervously biting her fingernails. Wow. That's a kinda cool I guess, Yugito acknowledges. Yakumo blushes and says, oh no, I knew I shouldn't use a technique I haven't mastered yet, before toppling over on her back. Oh no, I forfeit, I can't fight anymore, I'm completely out of chakra, she says. Gaara assists Yakumo in standing up by moving beside her on the stadium floor and using his Suna Shunshin no Jutsu. As Shino joins Gaara in the arena, she assures her that she is only experiencing mild chakra exhaustion, and then she and Yugito make their way to the stairs. The proctor starts the match with Gaara's arms crossed and Shino's hands in his overcoat pockets, and the two fighters just look at one another. The arena floor appears to be empty to onlookers. The more skilled shinobi and those who are aware of the fighter's skills, however, can observe a chess game being played on the ground. Shino would send a handful of insects into the ground through his sandals at every turn, causing them to approach Gaara. To combat the insects, Gaara would move a thin layer of sand across the ground. It would appear that you are quite aware of your surroundings, says Shino. I am surprised that you are willing to sacrifice so many bugs to test me, says Gaara. It is not preferred, but it cannot be helped. According to Shino, at least they perished serving their purpose. A tiny bug emerges from the earth as Gaara's eyes widen and he looks down at his feet. Gaara's whole body is engulfed in a thick cloud of insects. The other competitors all lean forward against the railing, anticipating Gaara's next countermove as the crowd cheers what they believe to be the match's opening move. But moments later, the entire mass just falls to the ground, just as abruptly as the Kakaichu covers Gaara. All Shino sees, remembering his bugs, is a heap of sand where Gaara was standing, signifying a Suna Bunshin. When Shino notices a big shadow over his head, he turns around and is startled to see the upper body of a giant Gaara composed entirely of sand standing behind him, poised to slam its palm down on his feet. In order to avoid the blow, Shino slows the sand's descent and sends out his Kakaichu to drain the sand golem's chakra. When the sand hits the ground, the golem doesn't disintegrate. Instead, it merely transforms into a massive wave of sand, revealing Gaara standing behind it before pursuing Shino. Shino throws a lot of Kakaichu into the air as he dodges away from the sand. Kakaichu. Utsuro. Kuza Boheki. Gaara moves his sand to create a huge shield over his head in reaction to the massive swarm of Kakaichu that is approaching him. The shield is sufficiently wide to prevent any Kakaichu from sidestepping his defense. Rather, the swarm as a whole is crushed to death and engulfed by the sand. Can you afford to continue to lose such a large swarm from your hive? Indeed I cannot, Shino responds, however, your defense has already been breached. Gaara senses a slight shift in the ground and looks down to discover that it has already vanished, replaced by thousands or even millions of Kakaichu to support his feet. Hijutsu. Mushinuma. The Kakaichu rises from the earth, encircles Gaara in a sphere, and lifts him into the air. The sphere of bugs briefly contracts before abruptly expanding once more as the command to launch the attack is given. After that, the sphere stays the same size and shape while hovering in the air, regardless of how many times Shino orders his bugs to attack. Shino remembers his bugs and is shocked to see a huge sphere of sand in their place. That technique you just used is similar to one that I used many times while in Suna, however, it's no match for my Suna no Tate. Gaara says from within the sphere, now it's time for me to return the favor. Sabaku Q. Gaara manipulates the sand that is left on the arena floor in order to seize Shino. The sand, however, falls away as thousands of bugs fly up in the air as soon as the sand catches hold of Shino, revealing the body to be a Mushi Bunshin. Much like the hold from Shino's bug breaks apart after only momentarily encircling Gaara at the start of the battle. Gaara uses his Daisan no Mi to look around for his opponent. After failing to spot his opponent, Gaara declares, Suna Arare. You've concealed yourself pretty well, but you have to stay inside this stadium. As a result, I can still force you to reveal yourself. Genma is forced to seek cover near the staircase as Gaara unleashes a hailstorm of sand bullets onto the arena floor, destroying all other forms of cover and dragging all the sand onto the floor into the air. Shino jumps out of the remains of a group of trees close to where Genma is now standing before he can launch another attack. Shino just looks around before turning to face the proctor. It would be illogical for me to continue this match, says Shino. To clash my animate bugs against his inanimate sand would only deplete my hive for no reason. I forfeit this match. Before turning to face Gaara, Genma yells, Winner Gaara. And you, clean up the arena before you go back upstairs. As the crowd watches the matches involving Naruto's teammates, their excitement only grows. Their only grievance is that, particularly in light of Gaara and Yugito's skills, they were unable to witness Naruto in action. The crowd's whispers grow louder as they watch the schedules for the final 3 matches. 5 of the 6 competitors are the heirs of their clan's branch, and the final one is the apprentice and adopted daughter of the renowned Kirigakure no Kijin, who will compete against the heir of the main branch of the Hyuga clan in the next match. Keep an eye on your sister Hanabi, Heishi advises. Even though she doesn't possess the most potential, she is still a formidable Hyuga in her own right. You could learn from certain aspects of her fighting style. Is her fighting style different from the rest of ours, Chi-Chi, Yui? Her style is certainly much more unique, Heishi asserts. Her form is much less rigid than the Hyuga's usual style. It complements her flexibility quite well. But would I be able to make use of such a style, Chi-Chi, Yui? Maybe not, but you should observe how your sister adjusts the Hyuga style to match her unique traits, Heishi asserts. Then you can learn how to adapt the Hyuga style to your own unique traits. But wouldn't Sama be angry with me for changing the style? Hanabi responds. He was very upset with Hinata. Sama. Only by adapting and changing can the Hyuga clan grow stronger, Heishi asserts. Therefore you can safely ignore what your grandfather says. My, aren't you bold, Heishi-kun? To tell Hanabi to ignore father like that, Shiori responds. Haha. Yui. Here you go, Hanabi-chan, Shiori says as she gives the girl the snacks she purchased from the food vendors. You are going to spoil her. She's still a 6-year-old child, says Shiori, and she has enough strict people in her life as it is. Is it any wonder why she likes you more than me if this is how you keep treating her? According to Hanabi, there is Hinata. Sama, indicating the arena floor. Pointing Hanabi is impolite, Heishi remarks. Gomen Chi-Chi, Yui. Hinata inhales deeply, braces herself, and turns to face Haku's smiling face. As the proctor signals the start of the match, Hinata assumes her battle stance and gestures to Genma that she is ready to go. I shall not insult you by fighting you at any level below 100%, Haku responds, so please prepare yourself, Hinata-san. The same to you as well, Haku-san. Hoping to get close enough to use her clan's renowned taijutsu on Haku, Hinata charges in while channeling chakra to her feet. She must, however, sidestep when Haku counters with Suiten. Reku Sujeki. Haku continues the initial attack with multiple Suiten Tepudama to push Hinata farther and farther back, preventing Hinata from gaining a firm footing and advancing again. Because of her continuous movement, Haku is unable to see Hinata collecting chakra for her hands as well as her legs to help with the dodges. Hinata chooses to switch from defense to offense after calculating the distance. Hake Kusho. Haku is forced to halt her attacks and retreat from the attack, allowing Hinata to move in again as the pressurized air wave slams against the water bullet and effortlessly blows past it. Haku is particularly careful to avoid letting Hinata's hands touch her, and by blocking against her forearms, she parries every blow. Haku's movement is actually guiding Hinata toward one of the few puddles that remain from Haku's initial offensive, despite Hinata's belief that she has him on her back foot. Nothing personal, Hinata-san. Haku declares as Hinata enters one of the puddles, but I do not intend to lose this match. Bakusai Hyosho. Ice has already formed around Hinata's feet, trapping her before she can even attempt to escape. Ice swiftly rises up the Hyuga's body as it throws multiple senbon at the trapped Hinata, trapping the senbon inside the ice shell. Hinata attempts to escape the ice prison by releasing chakra from the tenketsu points throughout her body, but as she does so, cracks appear throughout the ice block and her chakra triggers the exploding tags that are wrapped around each individual senbon. The ice block is shattered by the ensuing explosion, which sends Hinata flying 15 feet away. The chakra she released to break the ice block transforms into a modified chakra shield that shields her from any significant harm. She still sustains minor burns from the explosion, though. Sensatsu Suisho, Haku yells, exerting pressure. Hinata's arms are already in motion to prepare her defense before her feet have even touched the floor. With each movement of her arms, Hinata creates a chakra arc, encircling herself in a shield of chakras. Is that what the Kaden is supposed to look like, Chi-Chi? Yui? Hanabi inquires. This is precisely what I mean, Hanabi, Heishi responds. This is a technique created by your sister to imitate Hakesho Kaden. I believe Hinata-chan calls this technique Shugo Hake Rokujuyan Sho, Shiori asserts. Shugo Hake Rokujuyan Showa. Hanabi responds, it looks really cool. Every ice needle in Haku's attack is deflected by Hinata's chakra arcs. Haku is shocked, but she won't let her opponent rejoin the battle. Haku employs her most powerful technique as she performs a series of hand seals. Hijutsu. Maku Hyosho. Haku creates the renowned ice mirror formation of the Yuki clan around Hinata by using the water surrounding the city after the Hyuga's method melted all of the ice needles. Haku's form appears on each of the ice mirrors in the formation, moving into one of them. As Haku gets her most reliable weapon ready, Hinata looks around herself and assumes the Hyuga's traditional stance. Hijutsu. Masatsu Shisho, Hakesho Daikaiden. Haku is launched into the air as the enormous swirl of chakra breaks apart the ice mirror formation. Hinata stops abruptly, rushes in, and follows the Hake Rokujuyan Sho and Hakesho Daikaiden. Haku covers her body's tenketsu points by curling into a ball as a form of self-defense. Even the Junin around the stadium are unable to follow exactly what happened because it happened so quickly. They only see giant ice spikes spreading out from the area where Haku landed and Hinata flying back with cuts all over her body. Haku only opens her eyes in response to the cheers of the crowd, as she waits for impacts that never materialize. Haku swiftly stops her chakra feeding the technique when she notices the ice spears surrounding her, causing them to melt and disintegrate. Haku rushes to the fallen Hyuga and begins using healing chakra on some of the deeper wounds that are all over Hinata's body. As Genma announces her the winner, Haku inquires, "Are you all right, Hinata-san?" "Yes," Hinata replies, reaching for the healing ointment in her pouch. "The spears didn't hit anything vital. It's mostly just superficial wounds. The only injuries that are even remotely serious are on my arms, and they should be healed well before my next match." Everyone in the crowd was drawn to Hinata's performance despite the defeat at the hands of Haku, particularly since the branch house's heir, Hyuga Neji, is rumored to be an even more skilled fighter and will soon face the Yamanaka heir. But when Ino forfeits the match, the crowd will be disappointed. To make matters worse, Shoji, the Akamichi clan's heir, immediately forfeits his match against Uchiha Sasuke. Everyone gathered in the competitor's box looks at Team 10, aware that Shikamaru has already mapped out his team's route to the tournament proper, while the crowd is in a frenzy over missing out on some of the best fighters in the competition. The Junin instructors who have gathered to watch their genins perform share the same expression. As the Chunin candidates file out of the stadium, Naruto declares, "Shikamaru is the only person who deserves the Chunin title." "Yes, but they are going to be fighting against complete unknowns on the last day in a must-win situation," Yugito replies. "Sasama-san and Konkuru's teammates," says Gaara, assuming they do not suffer any devastating injuries on the second day. "That is true," Yugito responds. "Naruto-kun would try his best to keep Sasama-chan from getting hurt too badly. I don't really know how Neji's going to fight, but Sasuke doesn't look like someone who's going to take it easy on anyone." "So, how do you two feel about your second match?" Naruto inquires. "Are you kidding me? Haruno Sakura couldn't even do anything the last time we talked to her team," Yugito responds. "That was right before we headed out to Nami no Kuni. I doubt she can suddenly become a powerhouse." "I guess that's true. She still has potential though," Naruto replies. "Maybe, but she has shown no interest in tapping into that potential yet from what I've seen," Yugito responds. "So, what about you, Gaara? Kajiro-san seems to really hate you for some reason." "Gaara did beat her quite easily back in Ta no Kuni," Naruto continues. "Guess she still holds a grudge." Yugito chuckles and asks, "Who knows, Gaara is capable of leaving such an unforgettable impression on a girl." Gaara just looks ahead at his next opponent, who is walking a few paces ahead of them and conversing with Sasama while undoubtedly planning strategies against Naruto and himself for their upcoming match, ignoring Yugito's taunts. Waving her hand in front of Gaara's eyes, Yugito says, "Hello, Earth to Gaara. I know she's kind of cute, but it's rude to stare, and it's rude to ignore your friends that way." "Cease such nonsense, Yugito," Gaara responds. "She was strong enough to be considered the leader of her team. I'm merely trying to decide if she showed her entire arsenal against me in the last match or if she refrained from using any wide area attacks in fear of injuring Arashi." "I guess that could be possible," Naruto responds, "but you still have your perfect defense to rely on. It did beat that fire technique she used." Temari jumps on Naruto's back and asks, "Hey, what are you three whispering about?" "Nay, Naruto, how about we have a most youthful battle when we get back to the house?" "I would appreciate if you do not talk about such things in my presence, Temari," Gaara responds. When her younger brother says this, Temari just rolls her eyes. She chose to hold off on using the blackmail materials until she truly needed them, even though she had witnessed his encounter with the Kurama clan heir. Temari puts her head on Naruto's shoulder and tells him to carry her home, choosing to ignore her brother. When the group gets home, Naruto sees Minato wearing a somber expression as he makes his way to his study. Kushina, who also has no idea what is going on with her husband, looks over to his mother and shrugs in response. Naruto follows his father into the study, where he finds him facing away from the door and gazing out the window. Naruto asks, "What's the matter, Dad?" "Ibiki just told me that he still can't get the 5 auto genin to talk, according to Minato. He's asking me to allow him to use more extreme methods." Naruto asks, "And you're not comfortable with it, are you?" "We haven't resorted to those kinds of methods since the end of the last Ninkai Taisen," says Minato. "I have a few ideas that I picked up from my time during my war that doesn't involve any physical harm," Naruto replies. "Emotional yes, but not physical." Minato asks, "How much of a leash do you need?" "I'd probably break quite a few of Ibiki's rules," says Naruto, "and I can't guarantee that anything would come of it. And if it fails, it would probably increase their resolve," says Minato, "but then Ibiki can still resort to physical torture to get the information. I'd rather give it one last shot at trying to save the village's reputation first. I'll clear it with Ibiki." Gaara and Yugito are waiting for Minato and Naruto at the bottom of the stairs as they leave the study. Naruto looks at Minato, who merely nods in response to his unasked question, knowing that the two would not let him leave them. The four depart for the torture and interrogation department, gesturing for Yugito and Gaara to follow. Ibiki and Enko say, "Hokage Sama," as Minato walks into their office. "Ibiki, I have given your request some thought," Minato responds. "I want to give it one last try before using the last resort." "Very well, I shall prepare to interrogate the prisoners once more," Ibiki responds. "Why are Naruto, Yugito, and Gaara with you, Hokage Sama?" Enko responds, "Not that I'm complaining, but I thought you said that it's too soon to expose them to a first-handed view of what this department's all about." Minato says, "Naruto asked me to give him a chance at getting the information out of them," evoking astonished looks from those who are unaware. "If he fails, you can do what you want to do, Ibiki." When Naruto says, "I'm going to need a few things before I start," Naruto points to Anko and murmurs in Anko's ear. She raises her eyebrows in response to all that Naruto is asking for, but all she gets in return is a disarming smile. "You do realize what you are requesting is completely out of the norm," Anko continues. "It's not completely out of the blue, but not something that's normally done. We usually do things one-to-one here." "I know," Naruto responds, "that's why it would confuse them and make them more susceptible to my tactics." "Well, who am I to stop you from trying?" Anko responds. "Come on, Ibiki, we have to get them prepped for the interrogation." Minato, his two teammates, and the two lead information extraction specialists go into the room next door to watch the proceedings while Naruto enters the room where Ibiki brought all 5 prisoners after Anko gives him the requested item. Naruto casually picks up the folder with all the information they can find about the prisoners, placing the 6 poison vials in a location that is directly in the line of sight of all 5 auto.nin. Akadu Yoroi, Masumi Tsurugi, Kinuta Dozu, Abumi Zaku, Tsuchi Kina. "What are you doing here?" Zaku yells. "There is no way they let a genin like you handle interrogation." "As the Hokage's son, I do have certain privileges," casually adds Kakashi's typical voice. "Back to business at hand. I'm sure you'd like to know that Amachi had volunteered his knowledge about various bases around the shinobi world belonging to Orochimaru. In exchange for his information, he is now resting comfortably in solitary confinement due to be released in a few years without prejudice. So who here wants to follow his footsteps and be able to get out of this hall of terror?" Yoroi yells, "Screw you bastard, we aren't talking." "That's unfortunate, though I suppose not entirely unexpected. All of you know that there is an invasion coming and is still hoping to be rescued," Naruto says, attracting stares of disbelief. "Don't look so surprised. I did say that we know the location of Orochimaru's bases. Do you really think that we would just leave them alone? Anyway, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but at least 4 of you won't make it to the invasion." Zaku yells, "And what the hell is that supposed to mean?" Naruto pulls another vial out of his jacket and says, "These here are 6 vials of potent neurotoxin, and unless you have one of these, you'd have about 24 hours to live after injection. It just so happens that I only have one of these." What are you going to do to us?" asks Kin. Naruto jovially turns to face the rest of the room after saying, "Oh, I'm sure you can figure that out, little girl. So, is anyone interested in talking right now, or would you rather wait until after I've injected the toxin?" "Screw you," spits out Tsurugi. Naruto constructs 5 shadow clones and has them inject the toxin into each prisoner, saying, "That's what I figured you'd say. You've worked in a few labs before, haven't you, Masumi? I'm sure you'd know that a rat's metabolism is faster than that of a human." Naruto adds, "I'll let your first few hours remaining be entertained by watching how this rat reacts to the toxin." Naruto places the rat back in its cage and leaves it in the 5 auto. Nin's direct line of sight after injecting it with the final vial of poison. Naruto hums a cheerful song. then turns and walks out of the room without turning around. Che, rookie mistake, Zaku responds, he left the anti-toxin behind. Here is what we are going to do. Masumi responds, you grunts are going to retrieve that vial for me, I'm going to get out of here and call for reinforcement. Like hell you are, Yoroi responds, you are just going to hightail it out of here never to be heard from again. I am the calmest person here so it's obvious that I should be the one who alerts Orochimaru. Sama, Dosu responds. You were just trying to get out of town like those two, Zaku responds, I saw the anti-toxin first, I'm going to get it. Back up in the observation room, the four teenage males frantically attempt to move their own chair closer to the table while arguing with one another over who should survive. Naruto joined the group just seconds earlier, and the entire group watches in disgust. Yugito frowns and remarks, Naruto-kun, I didn't know Itachi was pardoned, as Zaku gets close enough to headbutt Masumi. As he watches Yoroi push his chair into Dosu's path and knock him to the ground, Naruto explains, he wasn't. He was put to death while we were still in Ta no Kuni. Gaara asks, then why did you say that to them? We know Itachi's dead, but they don't, Naruto states. I wanted to know if any of them will sink low enough to stare at the faces of the people he's condemning to death as he spills Orochimaru's secrets. They passed that test, Anko responds, but what if one of them did squeal? Then I'll play them off one another and offer the one telling me the most useful information to live, says Naruto. Once one of them talk, they're all going to talk. Minato remarks, even Ibiki isn't sadistic enough to do this, while observing Yoroi's legs being bitten by the defeated Dosu. If there is one person who might actually deserve to be saved, it's that girl off to the side, says Naruto. Now granted, she's just too fearful of the boys to do anything, but at least she hasn't talked yet despite her fears. She is loyal, but not to those four, Ibiki states. She feels nothing for them outside of loathing and fear. That means she is trying to protect someone else, says Anko, and she's willing to die for that person. Orochimaru? Inquires Yugito. No, if anything, she hates Orochimaru just as much for putting her with those two, Naruto responds. She would have talked a long time ago if Orochimaru is the only thing holding her back, Ibiki continues. She knows she is going to die if she manages to escape back to Orochimaru anyway. She would have a much better chance of survival by talking than staying silent. Especially when she can be freed of those two along the way. The loathing was apparent even back when she was taking the first portion of the exam. So what's going to happen if none of them talk after 24 hours? Asks Yugito. Nothing, really. The so-called neurotoxin is just a watered-down numbing solution, says Naruto. It's going to knock them out cold after 24 hours, and makes them feel like they are losing the feelings to their body parts gradually throughout the duration. But the rat is thrashing about like it's poisoned, Yugito continues. That's because Anko Sensei already injected the rat with a solution that reacts violently with the solution I just injected it with, Naruto responds. The four boys are fighting even more desperately for the antidote, now, says Minato. Scums like them deserves to die, says Naruto. Too bad we could still use the information they have. This is starting to look pathetic, Anko declares. Naruto, shouldn't you go and break up the scrum now? I want them to roll around a bit more first, says Naruto. They're actually trying to move weapons around between themselves. I'll let them think they actually have a chance before taking it away again. Makes it easier to break them afterward. Isn't that right, Ibiki-san, Anko? Sensei? You're going to risk them injuring you just so we can break them later? Anko inquires. Hokage. Sama, is it really wise for him to do this? Minato shrugs. You two agreed to give him full reign for today, she says. I admit I was curious what he can do, says Anko, and his plan is pretty good overall, but this is a bit too dangerous. He knows what he is up against. I doubt those four can even come close to Naruto, says Minato. It seems they are done for now, Naruto states. I think it's time for part 2. Before the four struggling Auto.nin can reach for the phony anti-toxin, Naruto returns to the interrogation room after leaving the observation room. Naruto sighs and returns the vial to the inside pocket of his jacket. Pathetic, I gave you all that time and you can't get to it, says Naruto. If you four didn't get into each other's way, one of you would have gotten to it a long time ago. Naruto picks up the other three by their chairs and returns them to their original positions before focusing on Yoroi, knowing that whatever weapons the four are willing to share are now in Akudu Yoroi's hands. Naruto approaches Yoroi as he has for the others, reaching over to punch him in the face instead of picking him up by his chair. Yoroi, confined to the chair and startled by the abrupt movement, drops the tiny shuriken that was concealed in his sleeve. The four male Auto.nin, enraged, look on helplessly as Naruto merely removes all of the concealed weapons that are all over Yoroi's body, including ones that the other three were unaware Yoroi had stashed away. Naruto picks up all the weapons and throws them into the cage where the rat is dead. He doesn't even care that the chair fell backward, slamming Yoroi's head against the floor and his back against the chair. He effortlessly gathers all of the weapons that the other three Auto.Nin have stashed away and throws them into the cage as well. With a fake smile that even toddlers can see, Naruto asks, "Now do any of you want to talk?" "Go to hell," Masumi responds, "if we die then so be it, at least your entire village will go down in flames with us." "Is that so?" Naruto responds, "Even when you know that Konoha knows there's an invasion coming, you still think Auto can win?" Orochimaru holds too many trump cards for him to lose, Masumi asserts, "Your pathetic village won't stand a chance." "Oh well," Naruto responds with a shrug, "it's not my job to change your mind. All of you are going to be dead by this time tomorrow anyway. I'm not going to waste my time." When Naruto hears the four male Auto.Nin grinding their teeth, he grins. Naruto picks up the metal cage and goes to the door, but pauses before grabbing the doorknob. Naruto turns around and returns to Kin, setting down the cage near the door. Naruto pulls Kin away by the back of her chair and remarks, "I almost forgot about you. I'm going to have to check you thoroughly to make sure you're not hiding any weapons either." Kin starts to fight the binds on her body once more because she doesn't like the tone of Naruto's voice or the message he was trying to convey. Her efforts are in vain, though, as Naruto transports her to a different room close by while the chakra disruption seals remain in place and her hands and feet are securely bound against the chairs. "You sick pervert!" Kin yells, "What are you going to do to me?" "I'm going to give you a chance to live," Naruto declares, "if you are willing to cooperate." "I'd rather die than to serve a sick bastard like you," Kin yells. "I haven't even told you what I want your cooperation on yet," Naruto declares, "Don't judge people too quickly." "I don't want to listen to what you have to say, you sick pervert," Kin responds. Looking Kin in the eyes, Naruto pulls up a chair and says, "I'll give you my promise. You talk. You can walk out of here alive. I'll admit that you are cute, but I'm not interested in sex," he says. Kin declares, "I'm not talking." Naruto pulls out the fake anti-toxin and injects Kin with it, saying, "There's time to consider it yet. Don't rush it." Kin is shocked by Naruto's action and looks at him in disbelief as he approaches the door once more. Naruto can still see traces of mistrust in Kin's eyes as he stares at the polished metal doors. Naruto lets out a sigh, opens the door, and returns to the observation room. "No need to look so disappointed, Naruto," Anko responds. "She'll talk sooner or later. She's starting to break." "So what's going to happen to those 4 pieces of garbage?" Yugito inquires. Ibiki is going to have some fun with them later," Anko responds. "We're going to let them sweat it out a bit longer though. He'll break them before they are knocked out by the solution." Minato looks at Ibiki and asks, "Do you still need to resort to violence to get what you need?" "No, I think what Naruto did caused enough mental turmoil for me to break them with a few right push," Ibiki replies. "All I need to do is ask the right questions." "Well, I trust that with your experience you will know which questions are the right ones," says Minato. "I'm confident enough that I should have the information before the end of the week," Ibiki states. "Good, I'll leave things here in your capable hand then," Minato responds. "The children and I will be heading home now." All of the potential Chunin are gathered in the stadium once more by the time the second day of the group phase of the Chunin tournament arrives. All 24 genin are lined up on the stadium floor once more in anticipation of the presentation, which serves as a reminder to those who attended the competition's first day as well as an introduction to those attending this year's event for the first time. Eager to begin his first real match, Naruto turns towards Sasama after all the pomp and circumstance have been finished. Sasama says, "Proctor, I forfeit this match," while the other genin make their way to the competitor's box. Naruto laments, "Awa, come on, am I ever going to get to fight," before turning to face Shikamaru and saying, "Look at what you did." "Stop blaming everyone else for your problems, Naruto," says Shikamaru. "Like I said on the first day, I only made the best strategic move available to me. It is only logical that participants want to avoid potential injuries in battles that they are clearly outmatched," Shino says as he passes Naruto. "I suppose you will get your chance by the time the tournament proper begins. I would be illogical to forfeit a fight then." As Temari and Isaribi get ready for their impending battle, Naruto declares, "I don't care about logic, I just want to fight so I can show I'm Chunin material. How can I do that if I just get a bye every time my fight comes up?" he asks, walking alongside the Aburame and Nara heir. "You can show them during the actual tournament," says Shikamaru. "This whole group phase is just a glorified money grab by the villages hoping to make an extra buck on the preliminaries." There are still people who care about the preliminaries, Naruto asserts. At least it's 2 extra matches to showcase your skills. That is true, Shikamaru responds, but knowing when to continue and when to quit is a chunin quality as well. Naruto says, it still stinks, as he watches the impending battle while leaning against the rail. Isaribi returns to the stadium floor and anxiously observes Tamari beginning to warm up her muscles for the impending fight. Tamari tries to calm Isaribi by smiling at her when she senses her opponent's wandering looks, but it just makes the newcomer more anxious. There's no need to be scared, Tamari states, just relax, enjoy the fight, and give the spectators a good show. When Isaribi says, I guess that's true, you met Naruto-kun during the past month, right? Yes, I was living in Umi no Kuni at that time, Isaribi responds, then I accompanied him to Cha no Kuni. It must be nice, traveling around with Naruto-kun, Tamari responds, wish I had a chance to do that. Isaribi asks, are you like Yugito-san then? Like her? You mean if I'm seeing Naruto-kun? Tamari responds, you did hear what I said to Lee, right? I thought that was merely said to throw your opponent off his game, Isaribi responds. Well, there was that too, but that doesn't mean I was lying about what I said, Tamari responds. Anyway, we should get this fight started. The crowd isn't all that happy about missing Naruto-kun's fight already. I doubt they'll have much patience looking at us talking, especially when they can't really hear what we're saying. A new proctor with a pair of goggles and the traditional Konoha Junin uniform asks, are you two finally ready? Yeah, sorry about that, Tamari responds. Why are you here anyway, Aoba? I thought Genma was the proctor. He begged off the job after the last round, said if he's going to die in duty, he wants it to be from a grievous wound out in the fields instead of from a heart attack on the stadium floor, Aoba continues. Anyway, Group B. Match Day 2. Sabuku Tamari vs Isaribi, begin. When the match starts, Tamari breaks up Isaribi's attempt to form hand seals by swinging her closed fan at her like a bat, making the girl jump back. Tamari has no intention of damaging the fan again because it is her backup weapon and the one she used in her last battle is still being repaired. In addition, Tamari's performance in the previous match, which Naruto had stated at the time, did not present her in a favorable light as a possible Chunin candidate. Although she is a little hesitant to take on someone who, just a month ago, had no real shinobi training, she plans to end this match swiftly and effectively in order to gain more points with the judges. Isaribi pulls out her weapons pouch and fires off 3 kunai one after the other, hoping to buy some time, not confident in her ability to form hand seals with any reasonable amount of speed given her lack of training. Tamari bats the projectiles out of the air with the giant battle fan. Tamari uses the momentum to turn around, activate her Kamaitachi no Jutsu, and open the fan. Even though Isaribi has control over water, the wind attack easily destroys her Suiten, Mazarapa. However, by the time Tamari's attack reaches Isaribi, it has reduced to a powerful breeze. Unfazed, Tamari uses Futen Shinkugoku to counterattack, being especially cautious not to aim at anything important. The attack finds its mark on Isaribi's arms and legs, knocking the girl to her knees as she is unable to see the nearly invisible air bullets. Tamari approaches and presses a kunai to Isaribi's throat. Isaribi says, I give up, and raises her hands in submission. When Aoba announces Isaribi the winner, Tamari reaches out and helps her stand again. Not bad at all, Isaribi, Tamari responds. For someone who's never had any actual shinobi training, you handled yourself quite well in this fight. Not that many people can say that they met my Kamaitachi no Jutsu with a ninjutsu and came out even. Thanks Tamari-san, Isaribi responds, but I still have a long way to go before I'm ready for this exam again, I believe. Don't sell yourself short, you just ran into a tough group this year, Tamari advises. There are a lot of really powerful genin this year. With your skills right now, you can make it through the tournament in a normal year. Thank you Tamari-san, Isaribi responds. Do you think maybe we can train together sometimes? Sure. The more the merrier, Tamari responds. It's always good to have someone looking at your performance from a different perspective, gives you a more rounded view of things. So we girls like to train together a lot of times. You can join us whenever you want. Tenten and Kiba enter the stadium floor to get ready for the next fight after Tamari and Isaribi return to the competitors' box. The proctor and the 2 contestants look at one another as they wait for the match to begin. Aren't you two going to talk? Aoba responds that the fighters all talk trash before every match that has taken place so far. There's no need for me to waste my breath on him really, Tenten responds. I'm just going to get through this as quickly and as embarrassing as possible for Kiba. I do owe Hana-san and Sume-san a favor for teaching me how to deal with Kiba after all. And why would Ka.san and Ne.san teach you how to beat me? Kiba responds. All they said was you needed to be taught a lesson on humility. Tenten continues, it's not really surprising knowing your attitude. Whatever, even if you win, you only managed to do it based on information from people close to your targets, just like your last fight, Kiba asserts, there's no honor in winning that way. Like always you let your pride get in the way, Tenten responds. Why do you think they gave us a month to prepare for our matches and even go so far as to let us know who our opponents are? They want us to learn everything about our opponent and use them in the matches. If you can't figure that out, you shouldn't even be a shinobi, much less a chunin. Go ahead and start the match, Aoba. I'm going to teach this mutt the proper behavior of a shinobi. As you wish, Aoba responds. Group C, Match Day 2, Senju Tenten vs Inuzuka Kiba, begin. As soon as Aoba begins the match, Kiba reaches into his weapons pouch and throws multiple smoke bombs at Tenten in an attempt to gain the upper hand. Simultaneously, Kiba turns Akamaru into a replica of himself by using the Jujin Bunshin on him. Tenten is still standing in the middle of the smog when the two copies immediately attack him using the Gatsuga, one of the Inuzuka's techniques. The attack finds its target and tears Tenten in two. Kiba and Akamaru are taken aback by the attack's tearing power and are momentarily stunned before realizing their error. Tenten, anticipating their combination, swapped herself out for a straw doll as soon as the smoke bombs went off. Tenten made the situation worse by putting a tiny bag of pepper powder in the center of the straw doll. The bag tore apart when Kiba and Akamaru attacked, shattering the doll in two. Tenten swings her legs from her seat at the tree branch in the arena and says, it's exactly what Sume.san and Hana.san told me. Prone to anger, moving in without a clear plan, overly dependent on your animal partner, and no idea on how to protect an Inuzuka's two most prized assets, your partner and your nose. Kiba screams, that's cheating, while sneezing. Allow me to add not paying attention to any piece of information available, Tenten responds. I did say you failed to protect your partner, didn't I? After being caught in the pepper trap, Akamaru changed back into its animal form and flew into Tenten's arms before Kiba could even react. When Akamaru collided with the doll, its body became inadvertently tangled with the thin silk thread that the adopted Senju had attached to the straw dolls, making it simple for Tenten to seize the dog. Give up now, Kiba, or Akamaru gets it, Tenten says, putting a kunai to the dog's neck. Cheater! Exclaims Kiba. Tenten presses the kunai closer and asks, is that a no? Which causes Akamaru to whine. Wait! Don't hurt Akamaru, Kiba yells, damn it, fine, I give up, just don't hurt Akamaru. Tenten puts the kunai away and then takes out a dog treat that Sume gave her from her weapons pouch. Tenten leaps down from the tree, gives Akamaru the treat, and scratches the small dog behind the ears before letting the dog go. Tenten turns around and returns to the competitor's box without saying anything more to the pouting Kiba. Aoba signals Yugito and Sakura to enter the arena floor after using a minor wind ninjutsu to remove any remaining pepper powder from the fighting area. Sakura descends the stairs the long way, but Yugito jumps over the railings and lands on her feet, crossing her arms. Why are you looking so nervous? Yugito inquires, are you still the little weakling that Naruto-kun chewed out before my squad went to Nami no Kuni? No, I've trained a lot harder since then, Sakura responds. That's why I won't forfeit this match. I want to know how much I've improved and how much further I have to go. You still haven't learned enough if you were asking that question, says Yugito, you never stop learning. No matter how much you think you've improved, until you retire, you will never reach a point where you can stop training and getting better. Yeah, I know that, expresses Sakura. Do you really? After you just asked the question of how much further I have to go, Yugito responds. Naruto-kun was kind to you, giving you the wake-up call so gently. Allow me to show you exactly how much dedication you still require. Group D, Match Day 2, Ni Yugito vs Haruno Sakura, begin. When the match starts, Yugito charges at Sakura, kicks her in the middle, and sends the girl flying back. Sakura's body explodes into a cloud of smoke before she hits the ground, and almost instantly after that, there's the sound of a wooden log hitting the ground. Sakura tries to attack from the air, but Yugito frowns and jumps back a step. Before the girl's feet can make contact with the floor, Yugito lunges forward and punches Sakura across the cheek, but Sakura quickly replaces herself with a wooden log. Yugito easily avoids Sakura's follow-up punch by slanting slightly to the side. Yugito lifts her fist and tries to punch Sakura again, but she stops before it can land. Sakura's eyes widen in bewilderment as she totally misses Yugito's upward kick that sends her flying. Sakura holds her stomach in agony as she asks, how can you dodge from my attacks when you aren't even looking at me? First strike, The strategy is only viable in a covered area. Your shadow in this open-air arena makes your approach clear as the day. Yugito continues. Second strike, your footsteps are way too heavy. And lastly, don't use the same move 3 times in a row because your opponent can easily pick up on the pattern by that time. Sakura conceals her position by forming 3 basic bunshin with her hands and then blending into the center. Yugito jumps back and shakes her head, then makes her own hand seals. It's not a bad idea against most genin and some fresh chunins, Yugito responds, but I'm not your run-of-the-mill genin. I can already tell that you are standing second from the right. However, I'll show you why this plan is flawed even if your opponent can't tell which one of you is real. Raiju Hashiri no Jutsu. The real Sakura, who was standing in the spot Yugito recognized, is startled when the lightning beast rips through all 4 copies. Anyone with a wide-range attack can knock out every copy, real or not, Yugito claims. Sakura, standing on quivering legs, takes a small scroll out of the pouch of her weapons. A handful of kunai with tiny pink pouches tied on the blunt end are revealed by Sakura as she opens the scrolls. The kunai clang against one another, slicing open the pouches and sending petals of the cherry blossoms into the air, seemingly flinging them toward Yugito without even trying to aim. Yugito frowns briefly as he surveys all the petals around her, then stops to watch Sakura shoot a kunai at her feet with an exploding tag tied at the end. All of the tiny exploding tags that are mixed in with the flying petals explode in turn as a result of the ensuing explosion. "Ha, belittle that," sighs Sakura. Yugito says, "Not bad, but still not good enough," as he leaves the sparse patch of foliage on the arena's edge. "Ha how? That might have been able to catch quite a few unsuspecting shinobi. It just so happens that my eyesight is better than most shinobi," Yugito continues. "You know, when you want to play around with fire like that, you really should consider who you are doing it against. Cause you never know if it might burn you instead." Nezumi Kidama. The ball takes the shape of a burning mouse and then quickly multiplies after spitting out a flaming hairball. When there are enough of them, all of the flaming mouse hairballs rush in Sakura's direction, and the girl quickly flees. Splinters of the log that Sakura used for her Kawarimi no Jutsu are revealed when the first few find their mark and explode. Sakura quickly runs out of items and chakra for her substitution technique, though. The mouse lets out a low whistle and bursts into flames a few steps away from Sakura. Sakura is knocked to the ground by the shockwaves from the numerous explosions, but they are not close enough to cause any burn injuries. Even though Sakura is still conscious, she is no longer fit to fight, so Aoba declares Yugito the winner. Yugito looks down at Sakura and asks, "Do you see the difference between us now?" She crosses her arms and says, "But I'll admit, you did better than I thought you would, so you've earned a smidgen of respect from me." Gaara observes Kajiro calmly making her way to the staircase that descends to the arena floor, ignoring the mayhem caused by Yugito's leap onto Naruto's back as soon as she got back to the competitor's box. Gaara tilts his head slightly and inhales deeply before advancing to the arena floor with his Suna Shunshin no Jutsu. "If I may ask a question before we begin, Fuma-san," Gaara responds. Kajiro inquires, "What do you want? I witness you discussing strategy with Sasama-san after the last match day, and Sasama-san forfeited his match against Naruto earlier." Gaara continues, "If the purpose for you and Sasama-san to join this tournament is to showcase the abilities of the Fuma clan, then would it not be more logical for you to forfeit this match after I've already demonstrated the ability to defeat your techniques in our previous encounter?" "It would be logical, yes," Kajiro responds, "but my desire to fight against you is purely personal. Hanzaki-san has already permitted me this fight against you, even if it means that the Fuma clan may lose face should I lose." "I see. Then I will not deny you the fight you desire," Gaara responds. "Please begin the match, Aoba-san." Group E. Match Day 2, Sabaku Gaara vs Fuma Kajiro, begin. Kajiro transforms the floor into a huge antlion pit as she did in Ta no Kuni by running through a series of hand seals and placing her hands on it as soon as the match starts. Gaara creates a sand platform to enable him to float in the air, already aware of the technique's potential. Gaara scans the arena for any indication that his opponent has surfaced from the subterranean. Kaden. Enden. He raises a hand, and the fire bullet is blocked by a wave of sand that passes in front of him. Kajiro is already back underground when the flame goes out. For the next 5 minutes, the sequence is repeated, with Kajiro emerging at a new spot every 10 or 15 seconds, using a few low-level fire techniques before evading underground once more. The battle becomes an attrition match between Gaara's mastery of sand and Kagero's low-level fire and earth technique, since Gaara is unable to recognize any patterns in Kagero's movements and can only block the approaching attack. Kaden. Kakyu no Jutsu. This tactic won't work against me, Gaara declares, deflecting the attack once more. As gas enters from around the sand shield's edge, Gaara's eyes enlarge. Gaara was able to follow up the initial strike with her Kaden, Kasumi Enbu no Jutsu, because Kagura's frequent low-level fire attacks gave her a false sense of security. Convinced that her strategy has succeeded, Kagura ignites the flammable gas and causes a wild explosion with another low-level fire attack. Gaara appears to be descending from the sky as the smoke clears. But the body breaks into small fragments and then crumbles into sand grains, revealing an empty shell. A good ninja never gets caught twice by the same attack, Gaara, who is standing behind Kagura, asserts. Gaara's torso is completely encased in sand before Kagura can even react. Kagura struggles against the hold, but she is powerless as the sand lifts her into the air and pulls the rest of her body away from the ground. "It is best if you surrender," says Gaara. If you take a look at the nervous glances from the Suna contingent in the crowd, you can find out that this technique is usually a prelude to bad things, very bad things. Kagura looks at Gaara, tries to wriggle out of the hold one last time, then looks away in despair and nods to Aoba, letting the proctor announce Gaara as the winner. As she rubs her left thigh in mild discomfort, Hanabi leans forward a little, anticipating her sister's next altercation, and swings her legs in her seat between her parents. Hanabi asked Heishi and Shiori to speak with Anko that evening about allowing the girl to train with the Tokubetsu Junin once more after seeing her sister's performance in the match against Haku. Shiori strongly objected to the request, rather than agreeing as she had assumed, and Heishi muttered to himself that he probably shouldn't have even let Hinata train with the insane Kunoichi. The girl pouted and made the same request to Hinata, but she was turned down once more. Recalling the first few classes she attended, Hanabi attempted a number of the stretching exercises, but her parents discovered her sobbing quietly in the courtyard, lying on her side, with her thigh muscle nearly torn from her femur. To treat the injury, Tsunade had to provide constant care for 2 days. "Hanabi-chan, are you all right?" Shiori inquires. "Does your leg hurt again?" "I'm okay, haha." Yui, Hanabi responds. Tsunade-sama said that the pain should go away after a few days. When Shiori says, "Tsunade-sama said you have to rest for a week." "Do you think Hinata.ne-sama has any other techniques she hasn't used yet?" "I am certain she does, but it would behoove her to keep them in reserve until the tournament proper," Heishi states. "Morino Idate has not been an active shinobi for several years now. I would be very disappointed if she is to lose against him." Shiori remark, "Again, so harsh on your own daughter." Heishi remarks, "You are truly going to spoil them rotten." After her father informed her that Hinata still has other tricks up her sleeve, Hanabi's gaze shifted to her older sister, ignoring the arguments between her parents. Idate literally starts running circles around Hinata as soon as Aoba starts the match in the hopes of using his speed to find a gap. Hinata does not respond to her opponent's move. Rather, she maintains the traditional Juken stance, not even shifting her body to face her opponent. Idate tries to turn around and hits Hinata from behind while his opponent is motionless. Hinata merely sidesteps her opponent without missing a beat, hitting Idate on the arm several times as Idate passes. "Hinata's speed has improved slightly as well, I see," Shiori adds. "That's a good solid 5 strikes on her opponent's arm in that one pass." "A slight improvement," Heishi responds with a nod. "She normally only gets 3 hits in, 4 if she really concentrates." Idate is well aware of the impact of the Hyuga clan's Juken, despite having lived outside the village for years. Idate doesn't even try to get rid of the dead arm feeling because he knows it won't help him. He chooses to use the same strategy as before in the hopes that the delay will help his arm heal. "I've heard that you assisted in Naruto Kun's mission in Cha no Kuni, and that you even assisted in the battle there," Hinata responds. "If that is the best you can do against me, then I'm sorry to say that this match is over." Hinata runs off to the side rather than remaining motionless as she did the last time. Idate lets Hinata pull away when he sees that his opponent has chosen to do for him what he wanted to do. This gives him enough space to react in case Hinata turns to the Hyuga's dependable Juken. There's a lot more to the Hyuga's style than just close-range taijutsu, Hinata continues, Hake Kusho. Hinata throws her palm forward and unleashes a powerful chakra blast, knocking Idate about 20 steps away and launching him into the air. Hinata moves closer and executes 3 more similar blows after the first one, the last of which sends Idate flying and slams his back against the stadium walls. Shiori inquires, "That's Neji Kun's Hake Shitenkusho, isn't it?" "I believe that is," Heishi responds. "Awa even Neji.ni.san has his own original technique. I want to make my own Juken attack too, Hanabi responds. "You need a better grasp of the basics of Juken first, Hanabi," Heishi asserts, "and it's unbecoming for a Hyuga to whine." Hinata is already at the Morino's side, striking his body to repair any harm caused by the first Juken strike, before Aoba can even get to Idade to inquire about his condition. Idade is still eliminated from the match due to the physical harm he sustains from being transformed into a human volleyball. Both Sari and Matsuri forfeit their bout as soon as Hinata's fight is over, giving Neji and Sasuke, like Naruto, automatic advancement to the following round. As Naruto, Yugito, and Gaara gaze at the two Sunakunoichi, they ignore Sasuke's lecture about the Uchiha clan's strength and its ability to force forfeits from foreign shinobi. The three are aware of the impending invasion and are still attempting to assess the strength of their possible real-life adversaries, while the others do not find it shocking that the two Kunoichi would give up to two opponents who, based on their reputation, are obviously superior. That specific thought suddenly sends Naruto's mind off in a completely different direction. Naruto is starting to comprehend Minato's wish to prolong the last phase of the Chunin exam as he turns his head back toward the cage observation box. In addition to giving Minato more time to plan the village's defense under the pretense of defending the growing number of foreign tourists, it also enables the Konoha shinobi to better monitor any foreign agents remaining inside the village's walls in order to assess their level of threat. Naruto mumbles to himself, "So san, is that your plan all along? It appears that there is still a lot I can learn about being a commander from you." Yugito asks, "Is something wrong, Naruto-kun?" Naruto responds, "It's nothing, so we're done here, correct?" When Naruto says, "Let's go home already."
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.